Chapter 1860. When Di Shan saw the change of expression on Duan Ruffing, Gu Li and Kumi's faces, he was completely at ease. Please search for the most complete. Damn. I really don't know where the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion gets his willpower from. Even at this moment he's still able to maintain his composure. Di Shan looked at Duan Lingtian in confusion. Huh. All of a sudden, Di Shan stared intently at Duan Lingtian's eyes. At that moment, he could clearly see a hint of dread flashing in the depth of Duan Lingtian's eyes. Although it was only a flash of fear, it was still discovered by him. It seems like this young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion isn't as calm as he looks. However, as long as he dares to swear on the lightning penalty oath as Diju said, he'll definitely die today, Di Shan thought to himself. Earlier, he was the one who had reminded Diju through voice transmission and asked him to swear on the lightning penalty oath. He was also worried that Duan Ruffing would interfere. He knew very well that if Duan Ruffing interfered, he would not be able to stop Duan Ruffing from saving Duan Lingtian. If that was the case, he might as well nip this possibility in the bud. As long as Duan Lingtian swore on the lightning penalty oath as Diju asked, he would have to commit suicide even if Duan Ruffing saved him. Otherwise, the 99 heavenly tribulation would strike him with the lightning penalty and kill him. As the leader of the Dragon's clan, Di Shan was naturally not a pushover. Due to this reason, Duan Ruffing's expression changed when he heard Diju's request. Tian, if you're not confident, it's better to admit defeat in this 5-year pact. Duan Ruffing immediately told Duan Lingtian through voice transmission. In his heart, his son's safety was the most important thing. At this moment, Diju had already sworn on the lightning penalty oath. Not only that, but the oath tribulation also responded to his oath and let out 9 deafening claps of thunder. Duan Lingtian, it's your turn. After swearing on the lightning penalty oath, Diju looked at Duan Lingtian. You won't go back on your word, right? The moment his words left his mouth, Diju looked at Duan Lingtian with a mocking gaze. In the face of Diju's provocation, a gleam flashed across Duan Lingtian's eyes. In the end, he swore on the lightning penalty oath as well. Boom, 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 boom. Accompanied by 9 claps of thunder, Duan Lingtian's lightning oath was also answered. At this point, regardless of whether it was Duan Lingtian or Diju, none of them could go back on their vows. Otherwise, even if someone saved them, they would not commit suicide. Naturally, the lightning punishment would take their lives. The lightning penalty oath was also the answer Duan Lingtian gave to Duan Ruffing. Tian, be careful. At this moment, Duan Ruffing also knew it was pointless to say anything else. Since his son had promised Diju to swear on the lightning penalty oath, it was obvious he had a certain level of confidence. He also chose to believe in his son. Junior brother Lingtian, do your best. Kill Diju. Even if Gu Li did not think highly of Duan Lingtian, he could only brace himself and cheer for Duan Lingtian at this moment. Although Kumi did not say anything, the way he looked at Duan Lingtian was enough to show how much he cared about Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master. Good. Very good. Duan Lingtian, you didn't disappoint me. When Diju saw Duan Lingtian swearing on the lightning penalty oath without hesitation, he felt at ease. A bright smile appeared on his face. Back then you tricked me. Today you'll definitely die. Diju looked at Duan Lingtian as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Back then, for the sake of his dead son Di Yong, he had gone to Half Moon Island to investigate. In the end, he was deceived by Duan Lingtian. Until now, he still felt humiliated when he recalled that incident. Now, it did not seem to matter who killed his son Di Yong. He only wanted to kill this Duan Lingtian to wash away the humiliation he had suffered back then. He also wanted to seize the Devil Seal tablet and hand it over to the dragons in the upper province so that he could perform a meritorious deed. In his eyes, Duan Lingtian was already a dead man. You'll have to have the ability to kill me first if you want to. Upon hearing Diju's words, Duan Lingtian sneered. Then, his expression turned solemn as killing intent flashed in his eyes. What? Are you doubting my ability? Diju laughed out loud as though he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. After a long while he finally stopped laughing. I really don't know where you get your courage from. You're merely at the intermediate eminent saint stage, but you actually dare to issue a death duel with me, an early exemplary saint stage powerhouse. I'll let you know that killing you is no different from stepping on an ant. The moment Diju's words left his mouth, the entire place burst into an uproar again. Duan Lingtian is at the intermediate eminent saint stage? You must be joking. I think it's impossible as well. When the people from various quasi-third-rate forces heard Diju's words, they shook their heads one by one. Not many of them believed him. Naturally, there were also a small group of people who were bold enough to probe Duanling Tian with their divine consciousness. He's really at the intermediate eminent saint stage. Heavens? The young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion's cultivation base is really at the intermediate eminent saint stage. What's he thinking? He's crazy. He must be crazy. As more and more people probed Duanling Tian's true cultivation base, the entire place burst into an uproar again. This was because they discovered that Duanling Tian's cultivation base was really at the intermediate eminent saint stage. Intermediate eminent saint stage? Out of curiosity, Leader Dugu of Mountain Shade Black Market could not help but extend his divine consciousness to probe Duanling Tian. Soon after, he discovered Duanling Tian's current cultivation base. He's really at the intermediate eminent saint stage. After probing Duanling Tian's cultivation base, he was shocked even though he had seen a lot in his life. At the same time, the two deputy leaders of Mountain Shade Black Market behind him, Feng Bu-yi and Zhong Qishan, had also probed Duanling Tian's cultivation base. Both of them were shocked. How's this possible? If this Duanling Tian is really Ling Tian from the mystical sky mansion, his strength would have been comparable to a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage a year ago. With the Mountain Shade Black Market's intelligence network, they knew about Duanling Tian killing a group of mastery exemplary saint stage disciples and a disciple at the peak of the exemplary saint stage from the mystical sky mansion's Zhao clan. Due to this reason, they felt it was impossible for Duanling Tian to be an intermediate eminent saint stage martial cultivator. Don't tell me Duanling Tian's cultivation base can regress? Zhong Qishan was stunned. Indeed, it's strange. Feng Bu-yi nodded as well. His face was filled with confusion. In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, there are many outstanding powerhouses who possess strength that far surpasses their cultivation base. Such a situation is only rare in the lower province. Dugu, who had regained his senses, said indifferently, "Let's wait and see. This Duanling Tian's strength should not be inferior to Diju." Based on Dugu's words, it was obvious he was confident in Duanling Tian. Not inferior to Diju? Just based on his cultivation base at the intermediate eminent saint stage? Whether it was Zhong Qishan or Feng Bu-yi, they did not believe it at all. However, they did not dare to say it out loud. If they said it out loud, it would be equivalent to refuting Dugu. They did not have the courage to do so. A mere intermediate eminent saint stage powerhouse dares to issue a death duel to the future clan leader of the dragons? What a joke. That's right. The future clan leader of the dragons is at the early exemplary saint stage. Just like what he said, killing an intermediate eminent saint stage martial cultivator is as easy as crushing an ant. Those who provoke and humiliate us dragons are destined to not have a good ending. Looking at Diju and Duanling Tian, who were confronting each other, most of the members of the dragons present on the scene were extremely excited. Kill him. Kill him. Many of the members of the dragons who were irritable kept clamoring for Diju to kill Duanling Tian. It's no different from crushing an ant? Upon hearing Diju's words that were filled with contempt and disdain, Duanling Tian's eyes turned even colder as he smirked. In that case, I'd like to see how you, the future clan leader of the dragons, are going to crush me like an ant. As you wish. Diju smirked coldly and made his move under the watchful eyes of the others. Whoosh. Diju's body swayed, and he seemed to have transformed into a swift bolt of lightning as he streaked across the sky and charged toward Duanling Tian. Although he did not unleash his full strength in the beginning, his current speed was comparable to an ordinary powerhouse at the peak of the Divine Saint stage. As far as he was concerned, his speed was not something Duanling Tian could compare to. When Duanling Tian saw Diju charging toward him at such a speed, he was amused. Did Diju really underestimate him? Since you've given me a chance, I'd be letting you down if I don't cherish it. At this moment, Duanling Tian muttered to himself as the 99 saint veins in his body began to circulate madly. The Sun True Origin also swept out immediately. Whoosh, whoosh. In just an instant, a pair of gigantic golden wings appeared on his back. It was the Golden Crow's wings. At the same time, a pitch-black, 3-foot-long sword appeared in his hand. This sword looked very ordinary, but if one looked closely, one could see 10 obvious saint inscriptions on it. It was a 10-inscription saint weapon. In the Dao Martial Saint Land, apart from super saint weapons, heaven-rank prominent saint weapons were the limit of saint weapons. If one wanted to raise the level of this saint weapon, the only way was to inscribe saint inscriptions. The power of a single saint inscription was extremely helpful to those below the divine saint stage, but it could only be used against those below the divine saint stage. To those above the divine saint stage, no matter how high-grade the saint inscription was, it was only a saint inscription on the saint weapon. Naturally, the higher the grade of the saint inscription, the greater the amplification effect. A 10 inscription saint weapon was a heaven-rank prominent saint weapon that was inscribed with 10 saint inscriptions. Such a saint weapon could only be inscribed by a 7-star saint inscription master or above. In the Debussy Subterranean, a 10 inscription saint weapon could be considered as a rare saint weapon. Even in quasi-third-rate forces, there were not many saint weapons like this. The 10 inscriptions saint sword in Duan Lingtian's hand was given to him by his father when he was on his way to the dragons after leaving the Azure Cloud Mansion. At the instant the golden crow's wings appeared on Duan Lingtian's back, a golden flame rose on the 10 inscriptions saint sword in Duan Lingtian's hand. It was like a burning sun, emitting a terrifying aura. Chapter 1861. Boom. Rumble. As a series of loud noises reverberated in the air, it was as though the air had exploded. The pair of golden crow wings on Duan Lingtian's back suddenly flapped, stirring up a strong wind and causing an explosion in the air. In the face of such a commotion, before the others could react, Leader Dugu of Mountain Shade Black Market, Duan Ruffing, the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, and Di Shan, the clan leader of the dragons, had a variety of expressions on their faces. Dugu had an expression on his face that said, as expected. Duan Ruffing, on the other hand, had a pleasantly surprised expression on his face. As for Di Shan, his expression was the most interesting one. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. Swoosh. In the eyes of the three of them, a golden figure that looked like a shooting star charged toward Diju at an extremely fast speed. Its speed was so fast that it was not inferior to Diju's current speed. Although Diju had not unleashed his full strength, his current speed was comparable to a martial or Dao cultivator at the peak of the Divine Saint stage. On the other hand, Duan Ling Tian had actually unleashed a speed that was as fast as his. Was he really an intermediate eminent saint stage martial cultivator? Impossible. Whether it was Kumi from Azure Cloud Mansion, the 2 deputy leaders of Mountain Shade Black Market, or the few 5-clawed divine dragon elders, after they regained their senses, their expressions were similar to Diju's. They were filled with shock and disbelief. The scene before their eyes had completely overturned their understanding of eminent saint stage powerhouses. An intermediate eminent saint stage martial cultivator's speed was comparable to a powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage? Was this a joke? It's a divine ability. When Kumi and the others regained their senses one after another, Dugu, Duan Ruffing, and Dishan could see it as well. The reason Duan Lingtian's speed was so fast was because he had cast an extremely brilliant divine ability. As for the aura of the energy that surged out of his body, it was equivalent to an intermediate divine saint stage martial or Dao cultivator. With this level of energy and divine ability, his speed was comparable to a powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage. This ability also caused them to be unable to help but have a thought appear in their minds. A high-grade movement divine ability. Furthermore, Duan Lingtian hadn't just grasped the surface of this high-level movement divine art. Looking at how he was able to use it so casually, it was obvious that he had already grasped the essence of this divine art. Otherwise his speed wouldn't have increased so much. Heaven flying immortal. With the help of the golden crow's wings, Duan Lingtian arrived near Diju in just a blink of an eye with a speed that was comparable to Diju's. When Diju finally reacted and his expression changed drastically, Duan Lingtian's body suddenly swayed. Whoosh, whoosh. In the next moment, 2 corporeal figures appeared on both sides of his divine art. They looked exactly like him. Not only did they look exactly the same, even the pair of golden crow wings on their backs and the 10 inscriptions saint sword in their hands were exactly the same. This was the technique of the high-grade sword art divine ability, transcendent flying immortal. Ever since he had mastered the devouring tactic, he had tried to master the transcendent flying immortal. Initially he did not hold much hope. However, he did not expect to successfully master the transcendent flying immortal in just a short time. Naturally, he also realized that the reason he could master the transcendent flying immortal so quickly was mostly because of the Sovereign Heart Sword. The Sovereign Heart Sword was the supreme sword Dao mental cultivation method. The sword technique's profundity contained in it could even replace or even surpass martial arts techniques. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian did not divert his attention to cultivate other martial arts techniques. During the process of comprehending the high-grade sword art divine ability, transcendent flying immortal, Duan Lingtian discovered that there were many profound similarities between the sword technique and the transcendent flying immortal. The profundity of the Sovereign Heart Sword had many similarities with transcendent flying immortal. After verifying each other, his understanding of transcendent flying immortal improved by leaps and bounds. In the end, he only took half of the time to master the devouring tactic before he managed to master the transcendent flying immortal. However, although he had comprehended the transcendent flying immortal, he was only at the rudimentary stage and could only form 2 clones. Although the strength of the clones formed by the transcendent flying immortal was slightly weaker than the main body, it was not much weaker. It was almost negligible. Just like now, Duan Lingtian had cast the divine ability Transcendent Flying Immortal, with the help of the Sovereign Heart Sword's profundity that was close to the 3rd stage. In terms of strength, it was comparable to the attack of an outstanding Mastery Divine Saint stage martial cultivator. The attack of his 2 clones was comparable to an ordinary Mastery Divine Saint stage martial cultivator as well. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 1 main body, 2 clones, and 3 10 inscription saint swords slashed across the sky with the sound of wind whistling in the air as they charged toward Diju. The 3 swords shot out in 3 different directions, leaving Diju with nowhere to run. How can he be so powerful? This was the first thought that appeared in Diju's mind when he saw Duan Lingtian's speed. The scene before his eyes made him feel incredulous. 5 years ago, the ant whose cultivation base was only at the Saint Rudiment stage had actually become so powerful after 5 years. Diju found it hard to believe and he felt like he was dreaming. However, when the 3 piercing sword chi shot toward him, Diju jolted and regained his senses. Although I'm more powerful than him, I've fallen into a passive position because I've been staring at him since the beginning. Even if I don't hold back anymore, I won't be able to gather my strength to suppress him in time. Unless I transform into my true form. At this moment, Diju's mind was filled with thoughts. Since he had been staring at Duan Lingtian since the beginning, he had only unleashed his speed that was comparable to a martial or Dao cultivator at the peak of the Divine Saint stage. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was charging at him in a domineering manner. His speed was not inferior to his and he was caught off guard. Under such circumstances, he did not have the time to gather his strength to counterattack. Unless he transformed into his true form. However, if he were to transform into his true form in the battle with Duan Lingtian, it would be a great humiliation to him. Due to this reason he quickly dismissed the thought. Whoosh. At this critical moment, in the face of Duan Lingtian's 3 swords that had locked onto his path, Diju finally took out a thick and heavy broadsword. There were also 10 saint inscriptions on it. It was apparent it was also a 10 inscription saint weapon. Mountain splitting force. As soon as the 10 inscription saint weapon entered his hand, the aura on Diju's body changed completely. It was as though he had transformed into a saber that emitted waves of piercing aura. At the same time, his energy at the early exemplary saint stage began to surge out as well. Naturally, he did not have the time to gather his strength and unleash his full strength. He could only slash his saber out in the shortest time possible. However, apart from the weak energy contained in this hurried slash, it was extraordinary as well. It contained the saber martial skill that Diju had cultivated. It even contained a middle-grade saber divine ability, the mountain splitting force. Whoosh. When the saber was slashed out, a saber ray that skyrocketed appeared and swept down from the sky toward Duan Lingtian's head. It was as though it was going to slash Duan Lingtian in half. Naturally, the one he had locked onto was one of Duan Lingtian's clones. At the same time as the saber was slashed out, the energy of an early exemplary saint stage powerhouse that surged out of Diju's body gradually revealed itself as well. It urged his body to charge toward the Duan Lingtian's clone that he had locked onto. Whoosh, whoosh. A saber slashed down while a sword swept out. The saber had slashed Duan Lingtian's clone into half. The sword, on the other hand, pierced through Diju's shoulder, leaving behind a hideous bloody hole. Whoosh. As blood splattered everywhere, it was as though a demonic red rose was falling from the sky. Diju's bloodstained body charged into the distance at an increasing speed, escaping from the attack range of Duan Lingtian's true body and the other clone. Whoosh, whoosh. At that moment when Diju was escaping, Duan Lingtian, who had sensed something, made his move together with the other clone and left 2 swords on Diju's back. However, due to the fact that Diju had unleashed the speed of an early exemplary saint stage powerhouse, the 2 swords did not injure Diju severely. Not only did it not affect his life, but it also did not affect his strength at all. Whoosh, whoosh. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Diju fled a few hundred meters away in a wretched manner before he finally came to a halt. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian had already recalled his clone. He stood with his sword in hand as he confronted Diju from afar. Everything happened in just a blink of an eye. It was so fast that most of the people on the scene did not see it clearly. However, at this moment, even those who did not see it clearly could not help but gasp when they saw the battle between Duan Lingtian and Diju ending with nothing happening to Duan Lingtian and Diju being injured. How's this possible? A young member of the Dragons of Dragons widened his eyes in disbelief. I'm not dreaming, am I? Many of the members of the Dragons of Dragons were pinching their thighs or slapping themselves. It was only when they felt the pain that they were certain they were dreaming. The scene before their eyes was not a dream. It was real. In the initial exchange of blows, Duan Lingtian had the upper hand. Isn't the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion an intermediate eminent saint stage martial cultivator? Also, isn't Diju an early exemplary saint stage powerhouse? Can someone tell me what the F***ck is going on? A young disciple from a quasi-third-rate force muttered with a dumbfounded expression on his face. Is this really a battle between an intermediate eminent saint stage powerhouse and an early exemplary saint stage powerhouse? You must be kidding me. Many people began to question. Naturally, those who questioned were those who did not see the details of the earlier exchange of blows. Those who could see the details and those who could barely see the details only regained their senses after the people in front of them had finished speaking. It was because the scene that had just occurred had completely dumbfounded them. The speed of the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion is comparable to a powerhouse at the peak of the Divine Saint stage. The attack he cast is even more powerful than an ordinary mastery Divine Saint stage powerhouse. A high-ranking official from a quasi-third-rate force said with a solemn expression. But, then, as though he had thought of something, he asked with a puzzled expression on his face, "Can someone tell me why his cultivation base is only at the intermediate eminent saint stage after my investigation? Is this the strength that an intermediate eminent saint stage powerhouse can cast?" In fact, he was not the only one who was puzzled. Even the high-ranking officials of the Dragon Clan, including the clan leader of the Dragon Clan, Di Shan, had a gloomy expression on their faces. Chapter 1862. The young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian, was at the intermediate eminent saint stage? What a joke. With the strength Duan Lingtian had displayed earlier, it would be strange if he was an intermediate eminent saint stage martial cultivator. Damn it. I've been deceived. Di Shan's expression was extremely grave. No matter how he thought about it, it did not cross his mind that something like this would happen. With his divine consciousness, he discovered that Duan Lingtian, whose cultivation base was merely at the intermediate eminent saint stage, was actually comparable to a powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage. Moreover, based on his observation, the strength of the energy and aura that surged out of Duan Lingtian's body was no different from an intermediate divine saint stage powerhouse. Due to this reason, he was almost certain Duan Lingtian's true cultivation base was at the intermediate divine saint stage. As for why Duan Lingtian's strength was comparable to a powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage, it was because of the two divine abilities he had comprehended. As the patriarch of the dragons, Di Shan, naturally, could see how extraordinary the two divine abilities Duan Lingtian had mastered were. Put aside the extremely brilliant movement divine ability that he cast earlier, even the sword-type divine ability that he cast later on was not something that the saber-type divine ability that Diju mastered, the mountain-splitting divine ability, could compare to in terms of grade. The mountain-splitting divine ability that Diju had comprehended could be considered as an extremely powerful divine ability even among the medium-grade divine abilities. For this reason, there was only one possibility. The sword-type divine ability that Duan Lingtian had cultivated was also a high-grade divine ability. He's so young, but he has already mastered two high-grade divine abilities. The sword-type divine ability at the back is still alright since it's only at the rudimentary stage. However, the movement divine ability at the front is not as simple as that. Di Shan's heart was filled with shock. Apart from that, he must have mastered some secret tactic to conceal his cultivation base. Otherwise, his cultivation base would have been exposed under my divine consciousness. Di Shan speculated inwardly. Di Shan's speculation was similar to most of the people present on the scene. Intermediate eminent saint stage? Impossible. Based on the strength the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion displayed, he's at the divine saint stage at the very least. I can't believe that in the Azure Cloud Mansion, not only does the mansion master possess a heaven-defying innate talent and strength, but even the young mansion master is so monstrous. With this young mansion master around, I'm afraid the Azure Cloud Mansion will be able to prosper for another few hundred years. Don't speak so soon. Today is the death duel between the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion and Jianghu. It's not certain if he'll be able to survive. 1. Read a book, that's true. The people from various quasi-third-rate forces who were watching the fight were discussing among themselves. Their gazes never left Duan Lingtian and Jianghu, who were confronting each other. I didn't expect him to be hiding his strength. Green Rock's expression turned ugly. He didn't expect Duan Lingtian to be hiding his strength. It seemed like Duan Lingtian had intentionally used his divine consciousness at the eminent saint stage to probe him that day. His purpose was to mislead Jianghu so that he would be careless during the battle with him. Of course, this was only Qin Yan's speculation. The more he thought about it, the more he felt it was possible. It was not only Qin Yan but even Shui Chan, the enforcement elder of the Dragons, and Zi Jing, the five-clawed divine dragon elder, had a grave expression on their faces as well. Duan Lingtian is actually at the intermediate divine saint stage. Jianghu didn't say he was only a saint rudiment stage martial cultivator 5 years ago, right? Zi Jing said in a deep voice. Don't forget that his father is Duan Ruffing. A hint of dread flashed in Shui Chan's eyes. Duan Ruffing. Hearing this name, even Purple Crystal fell silent for a moment. When she recalled Duan Ruffing's past deeds, it was not surprising that his son was so monstrous. I'm not dreaming, right? Guli looked at Duan Lingtian from afar. He was dumbfounded. He actually had the upper hand in a head-on battle with Jianghu, whose cultivation base was at the early exemplary saint stage. Was this really his junior brother Lingtian? All this while, although Guli knew Duan Lingtian was quite strong, he did not expect Duan Lingtian to be stronger than him. At this moment he finally realized his junior brother Lingtian was much stronger than him. At the very least he would not be able to do this if he was facing Jianghu. Perhaps he would be killed by Jianghu in just one blow. Young mansion master. Kumi's eyes lit up. A rare smile that was uglier than crying appeared on his skinny and ugly face. Tianer's actually so strong? Not only that, but the divine ability he cast earlier as well. Duan Ruffing stared at Duan Lingtian in a daze. At this moment he felt as though his son was a stranger. He could not recognize him at all. No wonder Senior Prophet asked me to make this 5-year pact with the dragons. He really has confidence in Tian. The moment Duan Ruffing thought of this, he felt slightly relieved. Based on the strength that Duan Lingtian had displayed so far, although it was not enough to defeat Jianghu, it was not impossible for him to protect himself. How's this possible? The son of the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion is actually so strong? The two deputy leaders of the Mountain Shade Black Market, Feng Bu-yi and Zhong Qishan, looked at each other in disbelief. Interesting. As expected, Duan Ruffing's son is not inferior to him at all. Du Guyao muttered as he looked at Duan Lingtian from afar. It seemed like he was the only one who was calm among all the people present on the scene. As time passed by, the commotion gradually died down and became quiet. One could vaguely hear the sound of a gentle breeze blowing. Duan Lingtian, I can't believe that your strength has actually risen to such an extent after not seeing you for 5 years. However, you must be dreaming if you think you can kill me, Jianghu, with just this little bit of strength of yours. After a moment of confrontation, Jianghu finally took the initiative to speak. He stared at Duan Lingtian coldly as he said in a cold voice. Whimsical. Duan Lingtian laughed maniacally and disdainfully. What? You don't believe me? When Jianghu saw the disdainful smile on Duan Lingtian's face, he felt a sense of suffocation in his heart as his anger rose. Don't worry. I'll use my actions to tell you that with just this little bit of strength, you're nothing in my eyes. Even if you're a divine saint stage martial cultivator now, it'll be as easy as stepping on an ant for me to kill you. The moment his words left his mouth, Jianghu made his move. It was as though he had transformed into a bolt of lightning as he charged toward Duan Lingtian. This time Jianghu did not show any mercy. The strength of an early exemplary saint stage powerhouse surged out without any restraint. His speed was much faster than before. Vast energy spread out from his body as though there was a ball of flame burning on his body. Whoosh. Wherever he passed, apart from the ear-piercing sound of wind being torn apart, a series of faint air explosions also reverberated in the air, piercing one's eardrums. Mountain-splitting force. Moreover, when he moved at lightning speed, the thick and heavy 10 inscription Saint Saber in his hand moved as well. The saber that contained a martial technique and the intermediate-grade sword divine ability that he had comprehended charged toward Duan Lingtian's head again. It was as though he wanted to slash Duan Lingtian into half. Whoosh. It was the same saber, but compared to when it was powerless earlier, it seemed like it was two extremes. When the saber fell from the sky, it was like a bolt of lightning on a sunny day. It was as though it had torn the sky into half. The saber that was slashing down ferociously did not hold back at all. It was like a death god's scythe that wanted to reap Duan Lingtian's life. This time, Diju had displayed the strength that an early exemplary saint stage powerhouse should possess. Elementary devouring tactic. When Diju's eyes gleamed ferociously as he made his move and charged toward him, Duan Lingtian instantly cast the high-grade divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. At this moment, with him as the center, a ripple-like whirlpool formed in an area of more than 10 meters in radius. He had also become the center of the whirlpool. As Duan Lingtian cast the elementary devouring tactic, it enveloped an area of more than 10 meters in radius. After the whirlpool absorbed the vast heaven and earth spirit energy, it quickly surged into his body and merged with his Sun True Origin. His Sun True Origin was also growing at an extremely fast speed. The heaven and earth spirit energy in an area of more than 10 meters in radius was already considered very abundant. It could definitely help Duan Lingtian raise the Sun True Origin in his body by more than one level. However, casting the elementary devouring tactic and devouring all the mild energy in the surroundings required time as well. Whoosh. Duan Lingtian had only devoured half a day's worth of heaven and earth spirit energy in an area of more than 10 meters in radius when Diju's ferocious saber arrived. It slashed down on his head, wanting to cut him into half. Humph! In the face of Diju's saber, Duan Lingtian snorted coldly. He no longer continued to devour the heaven and earth spirit energy in the surroundings. Instead, his hand trembled as he wielded his sword and charged toward Diju. At the same time, the Sun True Origin in Duan Lingtian's body that had been greatly improved also surged out through his 99 saint veins and into the 10 inscriptions saint sword in his hand. He swung it toward Diju without any intention of backing down. To be more precise, he swung it toward Diju's 10 inscriptions saint sword. Otherworldly celestial. With just a thought, Duan Lingtian once again created two clones. His original body and his clone soared into the sky together. The sword in his hand was like a venomous snake as it bit toward the saber gleam that shot out from the 10 inscriptions saint sword in Diju's hand. Whoosh! The clone's sword collided with the saber gleam, causing it to dim a little. However, the saber gleam was also destroyed. One of the clones was destroyed. Whoosh! Whoosh! His original body and the remaining clone charged out at the same time. Both of them pointed their swords. The Sun True Origin that had been greatly improved by the elementary devouring tactic gushed out without any reservation. Boom! Rumble. Accompanied by a series of thunderous noises, be it Diju or Duan Lingtian, both of them retreated a distance away. As for the saber gleam that shot out from the saber in Diju's hand and the other clone of Duan Lingtian, both of them had disappeared without a trace. Barf! Both of their bodies trembled at the same time. Almost at the same time they spat out a mouthful of blood. Their faces turned slightly pale. Impossible. I've unleashed my full strength, but I only managed to come to a draw with him? Before the crowd of onlookers could react, Diju's pale face turned extremely grave. The outcome before his eyes was something that he had never expected even in his wildest dreams. This young man whom he hated to the core and wished he could kill as soon as possible actually had the ability to come to a draw with him after 5 years. Chapter 1863. 5 years. It had only been 5 years. Although Diju had yet to transform into his true form, he had already unleashed all of his strength in his human form without holding back at all. However, even then he still could not defeat Duan Lingtian. What did this mean? It meant that Duan Lingtian possessed strength that was comparable to an ordinary early exemplary saint stage powerhouse. How's this possible? This is impossible. Impossible. Diju's eyes widened. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. He was unwilling to accept this fact. One? This Duan Lingtian is really good at hiding his strength. Di Shan, the clan leader of the dragons, had a grave expression on his face. Di Shan had witnessed the scene earlier very clearly. Duan Lingtian was actually able to come to a draw with Diju even after Diju had attacked him with all his might in his human form. It was truly unbelievable. At the same time, regret rose in his heart for the first time. If he had known that Duan Lingtian's strength was so freakish, he would not have allowed Diju to challenge Duan Lingtian to a death duel. The reason he allowed Diju to accept Duan Lingtian's challenge to a death duel was because he had investigated Duan Lingtian's cultivation base and felt that Duan Lingtian was not a threat at all. Although the dragon cleansing pool, the dragon's saint land, was precious to the dragons, if he had to choose, he hoped that Jianghu would be able to survive. This was because Jianghu was the first candidate to succeed him. He was also the only candidate currently. He would not allow anything to happen to Jianghu. At this moment, after witnessing Duan Lingtian's strength, his heart was completely in his mouth. Right now, the only thing Jianghu can do is to transform into his true form and fight with Duan Lingtian. I hope Duan Lingtian has reached his limit as well. Otherwise, it'll be difficult for Jianghu to defeat him, let alone kill him. Even Di Shan himself didn't know why, but at this moment, his heart was a little panicky. At this moment, even he could not help but feel a little uneasy. How's this possible? Everyone from the dragons, including the higher-ups, was dumbfounded. Whether it was those who saw the scene earlier or those who did not, all of them realized a problem at this moment. Jianghu had unleashed his full strength and did not hold back at all. In the second exchange of blows, he was actually on par with Duan Lingtian. Gulp, 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 gulp. After a long while, the sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard one after another. It was like a pack of hungry wolf cubs swallowing their saliva. From this, it could be seen that the dragons were shocked by Duan Lingtian's strength. This young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion is insane. The first time it could be said that Jianghu was careless and did not go all out. However, this time it was obvious that Jianghu did not hold back, but he still could not defeat him, let alone kill him. As expected of the son of Duan Ruffing, the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Both father and son are monstrous. No wonder he dared to challenge Jianghu to a death duel. As it turns out, he's not seeking death. Instead, he's really confident he can fight Jianghu. However, can he really kill Jianghu? That's right. Jianghu is only in his human form now. Although he's on par with Jianghu, it doesn't mean he can defeat Jianghu, who has reverted to his true form. Jianghu is a 5-clawed golden dragon, the royal family among dragons. Once he reverts to his true form, apart from becoming stronger, he can also cast the inherited divine ability of the dragons. I've heard of the inherited divine ability of the dragons. Usually, only those with outstanding innate talent among dragons can cast it. In this case, Jianghu, who has reverted to his true form, is so powerful that his human form can't compare to him. The group of people from various quasi-third-rate forces whispered among themselves. Although Duan Lingtian had displayed extraordinary strength, they were not certain if Duan Lingtian could defeat or even kill Jianghu, who had reverted to his true form. After all, Jianghu's true form was not an ordinary 5-clawed divine dragon, but a 5-clawed golden dragon. Kill. In the field, Jianghu's eyes were cold as he attacked again. The 10 inscriptions Saint Saber in his hand followed him like a shadow. What? Read the book? On the other side, Duan Lingtian did not show any signs of weakness when faced with Jianghu, who was charging at him. He held the 10 inscriptions Saint Sword in his hand and charged at him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Every time the 10 inscriptions Saint Saber in Jianghu's hand charged out, it seemed as though it was cutting through the sky as it charged at Duan Lingtian. Unfortunately, Duan Lingtian managed to dodge every single one of his attacks just in time. Whoosh, whoosh. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian was mostly dodging Jianghu's attacks using his divine ability, the Golden Crow's Wings. He only casually slashed Jianghu twice with his sword, but he did not injure Jianghu at all. It was not that Duan Lingtian did not want to fight with Jianghu, but the conditions did not allow it. Currently, the reason he was able to fight Jianghu, who was at the early exemplary saint stage, to a draw was because of the Sun True Origin in his body that had been raised by the elementary devouring tactic. The Sun True Origin would not be so powerful forever. Once it was depleted, he would have to use the elementary devouring tactic to raise his true origin again. Naturally, up until now, Duan Lingtian did not use the elementary devouring tactic without holding back. The elementary devouring tactic could devour all of the heaven and earth spirit energy in a radius of more than 10 meters with him as the center. However, he had only devoured a small portion of it. It was not that he did not want to devour more, but he wanted to cherish this opportunity. The burden he had to endure to cast the elementary devouring tactic was much greater than he had imagined. His spiritual energy was being rapidly depleted as he cast the elementary devouring tactic. Jianghu, I advise you to revert to your true form. It's impossible for you to kill me now. With a flap of his golden crow's wings, Duan Lingtian, who had used a little more Sun True Origin, suddenly raised his speed to a whole new level. His speed was even faster than Jianghu's current speed. Naturally, at the same time, the Sun True Origin he had to consume was much more. Duan Lingtian's heart was bleeding at this moment. How fast? When the onlookers, including the high-ranking officials from the dragons, saw the speed Duan Lingtian had displayed earlier, their eyes could not help but widen in shock. It did not cross their minds that Duan Lingtian's speed could still increase. The speed Duan Lingtian had displayed earlier had far surpassed an ordinary powerhouse at the early exemplary saint stage. It was almost on par with a powerhouse at the intermediate exemplary saint stage. The clan leader of the dragons, Di Shan, had a grave expression on his face. He could vaguely sense a dangerous aura. Diju, revert to your true form and end this quickly. At the same time, Di Shan could not help but remind Diju, this Duan Lingtian is very strange. Revert to your true form and kill him as fast as you can. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be a match for him at all. Unlike Di Shan, who had a grave expression on his face, the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Rufeng, and the people beside him were all smiles. Although they were slightly surprised by Duan Lingtian's current strength, this was exactly what they wanted. Junior brother Lingtian, let's kill him in one go. Gu Li was already numb to Duan Lingtian's continuous increase in strength. He clenched his fists and had a solemn expression on his face as he secretly cheered for Duan Lingtian. As for the three people from the Mountain Shade Black Market, apart from leader Dugu, who was staring at Duan Lingtian with interest, Feng Bu-yi and Zhong Qishan, the two vice mansion masters, were dumbfounded. The strength of the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion was actually so powerful. This was something they did not expect. Soon after, as though they had recalled something, they looked at their leader in unison with admiration in their eyes. Among the three of them, their lord leader was the only one who thought highly of Duan Lingtian since the beginning. Since you're seeking death, I'll fulfill your wish. Faced with Duan Lingtian's sudden increase in speed and the reminder from clan leader Di Shan through voice transmission, Diju could no longer hold back and reverted to his true form. At once, the huge valley was completely shrouded by a gigantic black shadow. It was none other than Di Shan's true form, the five-clawed divine dragon. To be more precise, it was a five-clawed golden dragon among the five-clawed divine dragons. The gigantic body that was several hundred meters long was shining with a golden light as it hovered in the air like an invincible giant. Without warning, a dragon's roar reverberated in the air. Di Shan, who had reverted to his true form, raised his head and roared. Then he lowered his head and stared at Duan Lingtian with a pair of sharp eyes. He spoke in the human language and said condescendingly, Duan Lingtian, didn't you want me to revert to my true form? Now that I've reverted to my true form, I'll send you on your way. The moment his words left his mouth, Di Shan's gigantic body moved. Although his body seemed cumbersome, it was extremely agile when it moved. He swept his dragon tail across the sky and lashed it at Duan Lingtian. Whoosh! The sound of wind being torn apart reverberated in the air. In just a blink of an eye, the dragon tail had already arrived near Duan Lingtian. If Duan Lingtian did not dodge it, he would definitely be sent flying. At this critical moment, Duan Lingtian, who had cast the elementary devouring tactic without holding back and had just devoured all the heaven and earth spirit energy in a radius of more than 10 meters, finally made his move. Whoosh! Whoosh! The golden crow's wings spread open and trembled all of a sudden. At the most critical moment, it carried Duan Lingtian and dodged Diju's dragon tail that was sweeping at him. This caused Diju's first attack after reverting to his true form to miss. After devouring so much heaven and earth spirit energy, the Sun True Origin in Duan Lingtian's body had transformed a few times and had been elevated to its current limit. The reason why it was called the limit was because the elementary devouring tactic that he had mastered could not devour a large area and the devouring power was limited. The Sun True Origin in his body could only transform to this level at most. The current Sun True Origin should be enough to deal with Diju. Taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian flapped his golden crow's wings and dodged quickly when Diju's dragon tail swept at him again. The direction he was heading to was not an empty space. Instead, it was getting closer to where Diju's dragon head was. Do you only know how to run? Diju was a little impatient now. This was because he noticed Duan Lingtian's speed had increased again. Although he had reverted to his true form and his speed had increased, he was still not as fast as Duan Lingtian's current speed. For the first time, regret filled his heart. He regretted agreeing to the death duel that Duan Lingtian had initiated. Chapter 1864. Is that all you've got? When Duan Lingtian, who had easily dodged Diju's attack, who had transformed into his true form, the five-clawed golden dragon, heard Diju's impatient words, he did not want to fall behind. 1. Reading? Duan Lingtian, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. In the face of Duan Lingtian's provocation, Diju's eyes turned red. With a deep roar, the energy in his body skyrocketed. At this moment, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Diju's body that was hundreds of meters long began to shine with a layer of bloody light. The bloody light was completely emitted from Diju's body. As soon as it was emitted, it emitted waves of terrifying aura that sent chills down people's spines. At this moment, the aura on Diju's body had undergone a tremendous change as well. It had become even more powerful. This is the dragon's inherited divine ability, True Berserk? Upon seeing this, a high-ranking official from a quasi-third-rate force muttered softly. His eyes were filled with horror. Although his voice was not loud, many people still heard him. At this moment, apart from the members of the dragons, almost everyone knew what technique Diju had just cast. It was the dragon's inherited divine ability, True Berserk. Tian'er, this Diju is casting the dragon's inherited divine ability, True Berserk. According to my divine consciousness, after his true form has gone berserk, his strength is comparable to an ordinary intermediate exemplary saint stage powerhouse. You must be careful. Duan Rufing's voice transmission entered Duan Lingtian's ears in a timely manner, reminding Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. As soon as Duan Rufing's words left his mouth, Diju shouted out loud. His gigantic body that was hovering in the air moved agilely and charged toward Duan Lingtian at a speed that was much faster than before. At this moment, his speed was not inferior to the fastest speed that Duan Lingtian had displayed earlier. True Berserk? Intermediate exemplary saint stage? In the face of Diju's real body that was emitting a bloody gleam, Duan Lingtian had a fearful expression on his face. He hid far away in a slightly wretched manner, barely avoiding Diju who was charging at him in a menacing manner. 1. Read a book. Even so, the strong wind that was stirred up by Diju's real body still blew at his face, causing him to feel a sharp pain. By relying on the elementary devouring tactic and the golden crow's wings, I managed to raise my speed to the level of an ordinary intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivator. Initially, I thought I'd be able to gain the upper hand with my speed. However, it did not cross my mind that after Diju cast the dragon's inherited divine ability, True Frenzy, not only did his speed catch up to mine, but his strength has also been raised to the intermediate exemplary saint stage. Although Duan Lingtian had successfully dodged Diju's first attack after he had gone berserk, there was no joy on his face at all. Now that Diju's speed had caught up to him, it meant that he no longer had any advantage in terms of speed. Regardless of speed or attack, he was far inferior to Diju. At this moment, Duan Lingtian had fallen into a passive situation. Tian'er, the dragon's inherited divine ability, True Frenzy, has a time limit. When the time is up, the frenzy effect will disappear. Not only that, but after the effect is gone, the dragons who cast the divine ability, True Frenzy, will also fall into a weakened state. At the same time, Duan Rufing's voice resonated again. Your speed is on par with his. If it's possible, widen the distance between you and him to buy some time. By the time his frenzy effect is gone with your speed, you'll be invincible. You might even be able to kill him. Upon hearing Duan Rufing's voice, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up immediately. However, it soon dimmed again as a wry smile appeared on his face. Diju's frenzy effect could only last for a short period of time. However, the Sun True origin in his body that had been raised by the elementary devouring tactic was the same as well. Apart from that, he had already exhausted 80 to 90% of his spiritual energy. It was no longer possible for him to cast the elementary devouring tactic again. Duan Lingtian, if you're a man, fight me face to face. If you keep dodging, it'll only show that you're a coward. Diju was starting to feel a little impatient after failing to touch Duan Lingtian after a few consecutive attacks. What? Read? Book with the dragon's inherited divine ability, True Frenzy, that he had comprehended, he could only last for 15 minutes at most. After 15 minutes, not only would he revert to his original form, but he would also fall into a weakened state. At that time, it would be impossible for him to be a match for Duan Lingtian. Due to this reason, he could only try to provoke Duan Lingtian. As long as Duan Lingtian could not take his provocation, he would definitely fight him head-on. At that time, he would be able to kill Duan Lingtian in one fell swoop. Diju could see Duan Lingtian's current strength as well. Only his speed was on par with Diju after he had gone into frenzy. As for his attack, it was nothing at all. What divine ability did Duan Lingtian cast earlier? To think he could devour the heaven and earth spirit energy at such a fast speed and raise the strength in his body to the stage of an early divine saint stage powerhouse. If Diju's frenzy is gone, he won't be a match for him at all. In the distance, Di Shan, the patriarch of the dragons, had a grave expression on his face. If he could turn back time, he would definitely not have allowed Diju to accept the death duel challenge that Duan Lingtian had initiated. Whether it was the strength Duan Lingtian had displayed or the divine abilities he had cast one after another, it made Di Shan realize Duan Lingtian was almost invincible among divine saint stage martial cultivators. What a joke. If he could force Diju, who had broken through to the early exemplary saint stage, to such a state, who among those below the exemplary saint stage would be a match for him? At the very least, he did not think anyone below the exemplary saint stage in the Debussy subterranean would be a match for Duan Lingtian. Even Tong Zhong, the chiliarch of the Azure Cloud Mansion's black armored army, who was widely acknowledged as the most powerful divine saint stage powerhouse in the Debussy subterranean, was not a match for Duan Lingtian. Although Tong Zhong was widely acknowledged as invincible among those below the exemplary saint stage in the Debussy subterranean, that was before Duan Lingtian appeared. Moreover, if he were to fight with Diju, who had broken through to the early exemplary saint stage, it would be impossible for him to last more than 10 moves against Diju, let alone win. Coward? Duan Lingtian smiled. Diju, I've been playing with your little tricks since I was young. Do you think I'll fall for your tricks? Do you think I'm stupid? Or do you think you're stupid? Duan Lingtian's straightforward words angered Diju so much that he almost threw up blood. However, he knew it was useless to try to goad him. Just like that, under the watchful eyes of the others, Duan Lingtian and Diju chased after each other in a seemingly leisurely manner. A 5-clawed golden dragon that was several hundred meters long and shrouded in a blood-red glow was chasing after a human who was as small as an ant. Not only was it shocking to the people present on the scene, but it was also a little comical. Coward. Duan Lingtian, coward. If you have the guts, fight Big Brother Diju fair and square. How long are you going to hide? That's right. You can hide now, but do you think you can hide forever? The people who scolded Duan Lingtian were the members of the dragons present on the scene. As members of the dragons, they naturally knew the flaw of their inherited divine ability, the true form Berserk. Due to this reason, they were also worried about Diju. If the effect of the Berserk continued, Diju would definitely become a piece of meat on Duan Lingtian's chopping board. This was not something they were willing to see. All of them hoped that Diju would be able to kill Duan Lingtian and obtain the opportunity to enter the Dragon Cleansing Pool, the Saint Land of the Dragons. This was because they knew once Diju came out of the Dragon Cleansing Pool, he would definitely soar to the sky. In the future, under Diju's leadership, the dragons would definitely become the top force in the Debussy subterranean again. They would no longer be afraid of the Mountain Shade Black Market or the Azure Cloud Mansion. At that time, they would be able to hold their heads high again. They would no longer have to lower their heads when they encountered the people from the Mountain Shade Black Market and the Azure Cloud Mansion. The blood-red glow on Diju's body seems to be fading. It's not just the blood-red glow. His aura seems to be weakening as well. Although the speed of weakening is slow, one can still notice it if one observes carefully. That's true. It seems like the divine ability that Diju cast has a certain flaw as well. The divine ability that Diju cast is inherited by the dragons, the true body Berserk. The duration of the Berserk effect depends on one's comprehension of the divine ability. Based on the current situation, Diju's Berserk effect can only last for 15 minutes at most. The people from various quasi-third-rate forces whispered among themselves. Gradually, they who did not harbor any hope for Duan Lingtian seemed to have seen the light of hope for Duan Lingtian's victory. Diju's speed is slowing down. That's not right. It's not only Diju's speed. Even Duan Lingtian's speed is slowing down. What's going on? Isn't it obvious? It's not just the true body Berserk divine ability that Diju cast that doesn't last long. Even the divine ability that Duan Lingtian cast that quickly devours the heaven and earth spirit energy doesn't last long as well. Now, it seems like Duan Lingtian might not necessarily win. This situation is really changing in an instant. I really don't know who's going to win until the very last moment. No, I should say that I don't know who's going to live or die. As time passed by, the people who were originally full of confidence in Duan Lingtian suffered a huge blow when they discovered that Duan Lingtian was powerless. Junior brother Lingtian? Gu Li's expression was solemn as he muttered inwardly, "You can do it, you can do it. You can definitely do it." Tian. Duan Rufing's expression turned solemn as well. Elder Ku's face was still expressionless. No one could tell if he was happy or angry. Lord Leader, who do you think will die in the end? Feng Bui asked as he looked at Dugu. I think Duan Lingtian will win, Dugu said calmly. Yes, I do, Dugu said nonchalantly. Why? Zhong Qishan, who was standing at the side, asked in confusion. Because he's more pleasing to the eye. Dugu's answer rendered Feng Bui and Zhong Qishan speechless. Was this even possible? Ah, Duan Lingtian, I thought you were very powerful. It turns out that your divine ability has a side effect as well. When the people realized that Duan Lingtian was powerless, it was only natural that Diju noticed it as well. Chapter 1865. The true body berserk transformation was an inherited divine ability of the dragons. The comprehension stage would determine the duration of the berserk transformation. 1. Reading? Once the duration was up, the berserk transformation would disappear as well. After the berserk transformation was over, he would enter a weakened state. This had always been the aftereffect of the true body berserk transformation. Due to this aftereffect, Diju once thought he would die in the hands of Duan Lingtian. He thought he would die in the hands of someone who was like an aunt to him in the past. Naturally, he was unwilling to accept this. However, so what if he was unwilling to accept this? The situation was more important than the person. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame himself for being careless and allowing Duan Lingtian to escape from under his nose. When Diju was feeling a little disheartened, he was surprised to discover that while his energy and speed were weakening, Duan Lingtian's speed was also slowing down. Not only that, but Duan Lingtian's energy was also weakening as well. At this moment, he realized the divine ability that Duan Lingtian had cast earlier also had aftereffects. At this moment he saw hope again. Even if he was in a weakened state, he was not afraid of Duan Lingtian, who was in a weakened state as well. After all, his foundation was much stronger than Duan Lingtian. He was at the early exemplary saint stage while Duan Lingtian was only at the intermediate divine saint stage. Now that they were in a weakened state, he would definitely be stronger. However, at this moment Diju had forgotten about one thing. Even if the divine ability that he and Duan Lingtian had cast had aftereffects, the aftereffects would be different due to the difference in the divine ability. It was due to this that Diju could not die in peace. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As the three sword rays shot out, Diju, who was in a weakened state and had his strength reduced by one stage to the early divine saint stage, was directly killed. The three sword rays that killed him came from Duan Lingtian. To be more precise, they came from Duan Lingtian's original body and his two clones. The two clones appeared after he cast the divine ability, the otherworldly celestial, again. Rumble. It was only when Diju's gigantic body landed on the ground with a loud thud that the people present regained their senses from the shock of Duan Lingtian killing Diju. However, when their eyes landed on Diju's body, they were stunned. This Diju actually thinks that the elementary devouring tactic that I cast will have a side effect. What a joke. However, compared to his true form berserk transformation, it was obvious that the elementary devouring technique was much more profound. The elementary devouring technique is indeed a powerful ability that even Hua Lao couldn't stop praising. When Duan Lingtian recalled the scene earlier, he could not help but sigh as he secretly mocked Diju. Just now 15 minutes had passed, and the effect of Diju's frenzy had disappeared. Meanwhile, the Sun True origin that he had raised through the elementary devouring tactic had also returned to its original state. However, even then he still possessed the Sun True origin that was comparable to an intermediate divine saint stage powerhouse. In addition, he still had many means to rely on, including the divine ability Transcendent Flying Immortal, so his strength was not much weaker than before. On the other hand, after Diju's frenzy had disappeared, his strength had plummeted, and he was a whole stage weaker than before. Due to the great disparity in their strength, no matter how powerful his true form body was, he was still killed by Duan Lingtian. That's right. The Dragon Ball. While the onlookers were still in a daze, Duan Lingtian seemed to have recalled something. His eyes lit up as he flew down and was about to dig out the Dragon Ball from Diju's body. The Dragon Ball was a great item that could be used to repair the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda. With Diju's strength, his Dragon Ball would definitely be more helpful in repairing the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he dove down. However, just as Duan Lingtian approached Diju's gigantic body and was about to slash his sword down to cut it open, boom! A gush of vast energy landed on his body and sent him flying. The energy was extremely powerful, but it was gentle at the same time. It seemed like it was sending Duan Lingtian out slowly. See Book Dishan. At the same time, a figure appeared next to Duan Lingtian at lightning speed. It was none other than Duan Ruffing. At this moment, Duan Ruffing was looking at Di Shan with a grave expression on his face. It was Di Shan who had made the move earlier. Mansion Master Duan, the dragon's body is not to be desecrated. Di Shan looked at Duan Ruffing fearlessly. It's the same even for the dragons from the upper province. The dragons from the upper province. It was apparent that Di Shan had intentionally brought up the dragons from the upper province to pressure Duan Ruffing. Diju was killed by your son because he was useless. We dragons will also keep our promise and give up the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool. However, Diju's body is not to be desecrated. This is the bottom line of the dragons. Di Shan's words were loud and clear. Bottom line. Bottom line. At once, many of the members of the dragons present on the scene began to shout. Since Diju was killed and the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool was taken away, they were in a bad mood. Now they finally had a place to vent their frustrations. Duan Ruffing snorted coldly and no longer bothered with Di Shan. Instead, he looked at Duan Lingtian and said through voice transmission, Tian, although Diju's body is full of treasures, based on the current situation, it's better if we don't have it. The most important thing now is for you to enter the dragon's dragon cleansing pool and use the one and only chance that the dragons from the lower province will have in a few thousand years. All right. Duan Lingtian nodded. He was not a reckless person. Naturally, he could see the determination of Di Shan and the other members of the dragons. He knew that although the dragon's pearl in Diju's body was valuable, it was impossible for him to dig it out under the eyes of the members of the dragons. Due to this reason, he quickly dismissed the idea and did not insist on it. At the same time, many pairs of eyes in the surroundings shifted to Duan Lingtian. Their gazes were filled with astonishment, disbelief, shock, fear, and dread. Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, actually killed Diju, the five-clawed golden dragon from the dragons. His innate talent is not inferior to his father at all. The Azure Cloud Mansion is really lucky. First there's Duan Ruffing and now there's Duan Lingtian. With him around, it won't be a problem for the Azure Cloud Mansion to prosper for thousands of years. The group of high-ranking officials and disciples from various quasi-third-rate forces looked at Duan Lingtian with a complicated gaze. If such an outstanding young talent appeared in their forces, as long as he was given enough time, he would definitely be able to lead their forces to greater heights and become a transcendent force in the lower province like the Mountain Shade Black Market and the Azure Cloud Mansion. It was just like how Duan Ruffing supported the entire Azure Cloud Mansion all by himself. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, the group of high-ranking officials from the dragons had also arrived at Di Shan's side. Apart from Di Shan, who was still able to keep his composure, the group of high-ranking officials, including the enforcement elder and the five-clawed blood dragon, Shuechan, looked at Duan Lingtian with killing intent in their eyes. Duan Lingtian had killed Diju and caused the dragons to lose the most suitable successor to the clan leader. If the dragons wanted to produce another five-clawed golden dragon and nurture it to the same level as Diju, it would undoubtedly take a long time and a large amount of resources. The moment they thought of this, they could not help but feel frustrated. At the same time, they hated Duan Lingtian who had killed Diju. Junior brother Lingtian, congratulations. Nobody knew when Guli had appeared next to Duan Lingtian and congratulated Duan Lingtian for obtaining the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool, the saint land of the dragons. Kumi had also appeared next to Duan Ruffing. Although he did not say anything, there was a hint of respect in his eyes when he looked at Duan Lingtian. Previously he was polite to Duan Lingtian because of the mansion master, Duan Ruffing. However, he was respectful to Duan Lingtian now because of the strength that Duan Lingtian had displayed earlier. Although his cultivation base was at the intermediate divine saint stage, his strength was at the exemplary saint stage. Duan Lingtian's strength had shocked him. He believed that as long as this young mansion master continued to grow, his strength would definitely not be inferior to the mansion master. Lord Leader has really guessed correctly. In the distance, the two deputy leaders of the Mountain Shade Black Market, Feng Bu-yi and Zhong Qishan, looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Congratulations. A faint voice resonated in his ears. It shocked Duan Lingtian so much that he immediately turned his head to look at the source of the voice. With just a glance, he saw Leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market. Thank you. Although he did not know why his father's archenemy was congratulating him, he still thanked him out of courtesy. No matter what, Duguli had been polite to him since the beginning. As the saying went, one does not slap a smiling face. Mansion Master Duan, please wait for a day. After I've dealt with Diju's funeral, I'll take out the Sun Key and send young Mansion Master to the Dragon Cleansing Pool with you. Di Shan suddenly raised his head and looked at Duan Rufeng. After he finished speaking, he did not wait for Duan Rufeng's reply before he led the group of high-ranking officials from the Dragon's clan to get busy. Diju was a 5-clawed golden dragon of the Dragon's clan. He was a member of the Dragon's clan. He was killed in the Dragon's clan's estate. Naturally, the Dragon's clan would have to deal with his funeral. Did all of you see that? I, the incompetent sect leader, have avenged all of you. Diju has died in my hands. Duan Lingtian and the other 3 left. On their way back to the little valley where they stayed, Duan Lingtian came to a halt and looked in the direction of Cloud Continent as he muttered to himself. His voice was not loud, but it still entered Duan Rufeng and the other 2's ears clearly. Duan Rufeng and Kumi knew what Duan Lingtian meant. Gu Li, on the other hand, could tell that his junior brother Lingtian had enmity with Diju since the beginning. He did not know anything else. Due to this reason he was very curious. Junior brother Lingtian, that Diju has enmity with you? Gu Li asked curiously as he looked at Duan Lingtian. In the end he added, if you don't want to tell me or if it's inconvenient for you to tell me, you don't have to. I understand. There's nothing inconvenient for me to tell you. Duan Lingtian shook his head and told him about how Diju had annihilated the sect he had established on the mortal continent, the Lingtian sect. Chapter 1866. At the same time, Gu Li finally realized why there was such a 5-year pact today. Why did he want to read? As it turned out, everything happened for a reason. This included the conflict between Duan Lingtian's father, Duan Rufeng, the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, and the dragons 5 years ago. In the end, in order to resolve this matter, Duan Rufeng and the dragons had made a 5-year pact. This time the dragons have really suffered a double loss. If they had handed Diju over 5 years ago and let Uncle Duan deal with him, they would have only lost Diju. Now that things have dragged on, not only did they lose Diju, but they even had to give up the opportunity to enter the Dragon Cleansing Pool. The moment Gu Li thought of this, he could not help but sigh. He felt that fate was making a fool out of him. He believed that if Di Shan, the clan leader of the dragons, could foresee the future, he would not have sacrificed the entire clan to protect Diju 5 years ago. The Dragon Cleansing Pool is the holy land of dragons. It can allow the members of the dragons to transform at a tremendous speed. I think junior brother Lingtian will also be able to improve a lot after entering it. Gu Li thought to himself. At the same time he was also very envious of Duan Lingtian. Naturally it was only envy and not jealousy. He would not be jealous of Duan Lingtian. He would only feel happy for Duan Lingtian from the bottom of his heart. Di Shan's death also meant the end of the 5-year pact. When the people from the other quasi-third-rate forces left one after another, apart from the people from the Azure Cloud Mansion, the people from the Mountain Shade Black Market did not leave as well. Not long after Duan Lingtian and the other 3 returned to the little valley that was filled with birds chirping and fragrant flowers, leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market also brought Feng Bu-yi and Zhong Qi back to the wooden house that they had stayed in previously. When Duan Lingtian and the others saw that the 3 of them did not make any move, they felt relieved. A day passed in just a blink of an eye. On the second day, a green figure appeared in the sky above the small valley and called out loudly, "Manor Head Duan, the Patriarch invites you over." The owner of the green figure was none other than one of the dragon's 5-clawed divine dragon elders. 5-clawed azure dragon Qingyan. At this moment, although it had been a day since Diju was killed, his expression was still grave. Especially when he saw Duan Lingtian, his eyes gleamed with murderous intent. It was as though he could not wait to kill Duan Lingtian to avenge Diju. However, he endured it in the end. Elder Qingyan, I've long heard of the Holy Land of Dragons, the Dragon Cleansing Pool. It shouldn't be a problem for us to join in the fun, right? After Duan Lingtian and the others appeared, the group of people from the Mountain Shade Black Market also appeared. Feng Bu-yi, the vice leader, looked at Qingyan and asked. That won't be a problem. Qingyan seemed to know that the people from the Mountain Shade Black Market had not left, so he was not surprised. When he heard Feng Bu-yi's words, he nodded. The reason he agreed so readily was because the Patriarch of the Dragons had instructed him to do so. Duan Lingtian met Di Shan, the Patriarch of the Dragons, again in a canyon in the deepest part of the dragon's residence. The entrance of the canyon was narrow, but when they entered, they discovered it was a completely different world. In the deepest part of the canyon, there was a majestic door that was strangely suspended in the air. The door was tightly shut and no one knew where it led to. The majestic door had 2 doors and each door had a different keyhole. The one on the left was round while the one on the right was crescent. It looked extremely strange. It was unknown what material the door was made of, but it seemed to be constantly emitting an ancient and vicissitude aura as though it had existed for a long time. This is the door to the dragon cleansing pool. A group of people led by Di Shan, the patriarch of the dragons, had arrived near the door at some point in time. Di Shan looked at the door that was suspended in the air and took the initiative to introduce it. When Duan Lingtian heard this, he immediately looked over. He discovered the door in front of him was suspended in the air. He could not see any illusions around it at all. What? Read. The door seemed to be embedded in the air, giving off an incomparably mysterious feeling. The dragon cleansing pool is inside? At the very least, it made Duan Lingtian yearn for it from the bottom of his heart since he was about to enter it. The unknown made him curious but at the same time he was wary. All in all, Duan Lingtian's feelings were extremely complicated at this moment. Young Mansion Master. Di Shan suddenly shifted his gaze to Duan Lingtian and said calmly, "As far as I can remember, apart from the dragons, no one else has ever entered the dragon cleansing pool. For this reason, I have no idea what will happen to you once you enter it. For this reason, if you decide to enter it, you'll have to bear the consequences yourself. Even if you die in there, it has nothing to do with the dragons." When Di Shan reached the end of his sentence, a hint of warning could be heard in his tone. He was not trying to scare Duan Lingtian. Instead he was telling the truth. "Patriarch Di Shan, I'm afraid you're hoping I won't enter, right?" Upon hearing Di Shan's words, Duan Lingtian was stunned for a moment before he asked indifferently. "Yes, I do have such thoughts. However, I'm telling the truth. Even I don't know what will happen to humans when they enter the dragon cleansing pool." Di Shan nodded and said bluntly, "Of course. If you insist on entering it, I won't stop you. After all, you've won the 5-year pact." When Di Shan mentioned the 5-year pact again, he could not help but have a pained expression on his face. It did not cross his mind that Diju, whom he had insisted on protecting 5 years ago, would still die 5 years later. Moreover, not only was Diju dead, but the opportunity for the dragons to enter the dragon cleansing pool that only happened once every several thousand years was gone as well. The reason all of this had happened was because of his wrong decision and the young man in front of him. It was this young man who had killed Diju and won the 5-year pact. "Since we're here, we'll naturally have to enter." Upon hearing Di Shan's words, Duan Lingtian said straightforwardly. Di Shan nodded and no longer said anything to Duan Lingtian. Instead, he immediately looked at Duan Ruffing. "Mansion Master Duan, take out the moon key that you've kept for me. We'll open the door to the dragon cleansing pool together. Apart from that, if anything happens to young Mansion Master in there, it has nothing to do with the dragons." "What? Do you think I'm an unreasonable person, clan leader Di Shan?" Duan Ruffing asked rhetorically. At the same time, a key appeared in his hand. It was the moon key that he had taken from Di Shan to keep for him. Di Shan still had a sun key in his hand. The door to the dragon cleansing pool could only be opened when the sun key and the moon key were put together. That circle and that crescent moon. They must be the keyholes. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he looked at the 2 holes that were neither deep nor shallow on the door in front of him. As it turned out, Duan Lingtian was right. After Duan Ruffing and Di Shan, the clan leader of the dragons, approached the door together, they made their moves one after another. They used an invisible force to guide the keys in their hands and stuffed them into the 2 keyholes on the door. At this moment, it was not only Duan Lingtian, Guli and Kumi. Even the 3 people from the Mountain Shade Black Market who were led by their leader, Duan Lingtian, stared intently at the door in the air. Under everyone's watchful eyes, a clear and mysterious energy extended from the sun key and the moon key. In just a blink of an eye, it spread to the entire door. After a while, a strong light engulfed the door like a scorching sun in the sky, causing everyone to squint their eyes instinctively. Boom. At this moment, a loud noise resonated in the air. Along with the loud noise, the strong light that was like a scorching sun in the sky faded away. The 2 doors that were tightly shut seemed to be slowly pushed open by an invisible force. Rumble. Soon after, the door was completely pushed open. The moment the door was pushed open, everyone, including Duan Lingtian, looked at the door in unison. All of them wanted to see what was behind the door. However, in the next moment, Duan Lingtian and the others were disappointed. This was because after the door was opened, apart from a thin and transparent barrier that was formed by an unknown force, they could not see anything else. In their eyes, the barrier was like a layer of transparent glass. Behind the glass was the canyon. Theoretically speaking, there's no time limit for entering the dragon cleansing pool. When it's time to come out, the formation in the dragon cleansing pool will send you out. Di Shan looked at Duan Lingtian and said, as the leader of the dragons, although he was saddened by Di Ju's death, he was a person who knew when to give up. Since he had lost the 5-year pact, he naturally had to fulfill his promise and give the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool to the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. He was impressed by Di Shan, who could still speak to him so calmly. At the very least, he knew if he was Di Shan, he would not be so calm when facing the person who killed Di Ju, the 5-clawed golden dragon. Father, I'm going in now. Duan Lingtian looked at Duan Ruffing. Be careful. Duan Ruffing nodded. When he recalled Di Shan's words, he could not help but remind him. Don't worry. After giving Duan Ruffing a reassuring look, Duan Lingtian glanced at Gu Li and Kumi before he shot toward the door that led to the dragon cleansing pool at lightning speed. Under the watchful eyes of the others, Duan Lingtian collided with the transparent barrier that was formed by an unknown force on the door. In the next instant, he seemed to have been swallowed by the barrier and disappeared before everyone's eyes. Duan Lingtian had entered the dragon cleansing pool. Mansion Master Duan. Chapter 1867. Leader Dugu, did you stay just to ask this? Faced with his old rival, Duan Rufeng narrowed his eyes and said nonchalantly, you heard what clan leader Di Shan said earlier. Even he doesn't know what happens when humans enter the dragon cleansing pool. Do you think I'll know? If you don't know, would you let your son take the risk? Duan Ruffing asked as he looked at Duan Ruffing. 1. Reading? Upon hearing Duan Rufeng's words, Di Shan could not help but look at Duan Ruffing with a hint of suspicion in his eyes. It was true that he was the clan leader of the dragons. It was also true that he did not know what would happen to humans after they entered the dragon cleansing pool. However, just as the leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market had said, if the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion did not know what would happen to humans after they entered the dragon cleansing pool, would he let his son take the risk? Leader Dugu, you're the leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market after all. Haven't you heard of the saying, fortune comes from danger? The dragon cleansing pool is the holy land of dragons. It has helped countless outstanding dragons to soar to the top. This is a well-known fact. I believe that as long as my son can come out alive, he'll definitely obtain a great fortune. Duan Rufeng said unhurriedly. Naturally, he did not mention the most important thing, and it was impossible for him to mention it. That was, allowing his son to enter the dragon cleansing pool was suggested by the elusive elder Tianji. He believed in the oracle man. Fortune comes from danger? Although Duan Rufeng's words were a little unreasonable, both Dugu and Di Shan could tell he did not want to tell the truth. For this reason they did not probe further. This was because they knew they would not be able to get anything out of him even if they continued to probe. Clan leader Di Shan, I'm sorry for disturbing you these few days. Farewell. Dugu did not plan to stay any longer since he did not get the answer he wanted. After bidding farewell to Di Shan, he left with Feng Bu-yi and Zhong Qishan. At this moment only Di Shan, Duan Ruffing, and the others were left in the valley. There was also the open void door. On the other hand, after Duan Lingtian entered the dragon cleansing pond through the door, he felt as if his entire body was submerged in water. After entering, Duan Lingtian was shocked to find that he could not feel the existence of his own body. He wanted to control his body, but he couldn't. He wanted to use his divine sense to observe his surroundings, but he still didn't believe it. At this moment, all that was left of him was his consciousness, a consciousness that seemed to have sunk into a quagmire. At first, it was nothing, but as time passed, Duan Lingtian became more and more uneasy. What the hell is going on? Wasn't this the holy land of dragons, the dragon cleansing pool? Why is it so strange? Could it be that the leader of the dragons, Di Shan, lied to us? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but guess. However, this conjecture was quickly dispelled because he felt that it was impossible. With the strength of the dragons in the lower province, it was impossible for them to create such a realistic door that led to the dragon cleansing pool. That door was obviously the work of an almighty figure. Such an almighty figure would only exist in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land or the Devata realms. He could only think, imagine and recall. Apart from that, there was nothing else he could do. Duan Lingtian did not know what was happening to him at this moment. He did not know if he was in the dragon cleansing pool or not. The dragon cleansing pool was without a doubt unfamiliar to him. Before he entered the dragon cleansing pool, He had no idea what was in it, let alone what would happen after he entered. What should I do now? As time passed, Duan Lingtian became more and more agitated. He really did not know what to do. Currently he could only think. He could not control his divine consciousness or his body. Moreover, he could not even feel the existence of his own body. After an unknown amount of time, Duan Lingtian, who was getting more and more agitated, felt as though he was about to go crazy. What the hell is this place? Where's the dragon cleansing pool, the saint land of dragons? In the end, Duan Lingtian seemed to know that it was useless to be agitated, so he gradually calmed down. After he calmed down, the first thing he thought of was Duan Ruffing and the others who were waiting outside. I wonder how much time has passed. Father and senior brother Guli must be tired of waiting, right? Gradually, Duan Lingtian thought of his mother, Li Ro, his fiancée Li Fei, and his son Duan Yentian. Then he thought of Ke and Feng Tianwo. The elementary devouring tactic is the main reason why I was able to kill Diju in the battle yesterday. Duan Lingtian, who had nothing to think about, suddenly recalled the battle between him and Diju yesterday. The reason he was able to kill Diju so easily was because Diju had cast the inherited divine ability, the true form frenzy, of the dragons. The aftereffect of the true form frenzy was the real reason Diju was killed. The true form frenzy was the inherited divine ability of the dragons. It could greatly increase one's strength in a short period of time. However, once the time passed, not only would it revert to its original form, but it would also enter a weakened state. Just like Diju yesterday, his strength was only at the early Divine Saint stage when he was in a weakened state. On the other hand, although Duan Lingtian had lost the effect of the elementary devouring tactic, there was no aftereffect at all. Even if his Sun True Origin reverted to its original form, it was still comparable to an intermediate Divine Saint stage powerhouse. With his strength at the intermediate Divine Saint stage, coupled with his divine abilities, the Golden Crow's Wings, the Otherworldly Celestial, and the Sovereign Heart Sword, it was easy for him to kill an early Divine Saint stage powerhouse. For this reason, when Diju was in a weakened state yesterday before anyone could react, Duan Lingtian had easily killed Diju in just a blink of an eye with his lightning-fast attack. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian said the elementary devouring tactic was the main reason for the battle yesterday. If it was not for the fact that the elementary devouring tactic could devour all the energy in his surroundings and raise his Sun True Origin in a short period of time, it would have been impossible for him to possess a speed that was comparable to an ordinary intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivator after casting the Golden Crow's Wings. If it was not for his speed that was comparable to an ordinary intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivator, it would have been impossible for him to dodge Diju's attack when he was in a berserk state. If it was not for the fact that the elementary devouring tactic did not have any aftereffects, it would have been impossible for him to kill Diju so easily. Naturally, although the elementary devouring tactic was the main reason, the Golden Crow's Wings also contributed a lot. Both were indispensable. Diju. When Duan Lingtian thought about Diju whom he had killed, his mind started to wander as he recalled the first time he met Diju. At that time he was just an ant in Diju's eyes. An ant that he could trample on at will. In fact, when he was only at the Saint Rudiment stage, he was indeed just an ant in front of Diju whose cultivation base was at the peak of the Divine Saint stage. If Diju wanted to kill him, he would only need to lift a finger. However, after 5 years he had already grown to the point where he could fight Diju and even kill him. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he sighed again. I'm afraid Diju didn't expect that I, who he regarded as an ant 5 years ago, would personally send him to hell 5 years later. However, that clan leader of the dragons, Di Shan, is a person who knows when to give up. Initially, I thought he would make things difficult for us after I killed Diju. I didn't expect him to be so cooperative. The reason he cooperated must be because he's afraid of father. Duan Lingtian's thoughts started to wander. In the end, even he did not know what to think anymore. In this world where only his consciousness existed, he could not see anything and could not feel the existence of his body. As time went by, he felt like he was going crazy. However, Duan Lingtian was a soldier specialist on Earth in his past life. Due to the need for an undercover mission, he had once hid in a dark place for a few months. If it was an ordinary person, he would have had a mental breakdown long ago. It was due to his experience in his past life that Duan Lingtian did not go crazy in such a situation. Those dragons who entered the dragon cleansing pool in the past definitely didn't have the same experience as me. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to leave the dragon cleansing pool so smoothly. How could an ordinary person endure such a boring torment? Duan Lingtian thought to himself. As time went by, Duan Lingtian calmed down again. In the end, he resigned himself to the situation. As expected of the successor of the seven absolute sect's first absolute, the Fog Rain progeny sword saint, Feng Qingyang. Little fellow, you've passed my test. I'll keep my promise to Feng Qingyang and grant you the ability to transform into a dragon. Just as Duan Lingtian's consciousness fell silent, a voice that was full of energy suddenly resonated. The voice was majestic and intimidating. While the voice woke Duan Lingtian up, it also made Duan Lingtian overjoyed. This was because Duan Lingtian realized his consciousness had returned to his body. Moreover, his divine consciousness had returned as well. Before he could even observe his surroundings, Duan Lingtian instinctively looked in front of him in the direction of the voice. He saw a gigantic silhouette that was several thousand meters long hovering in the sky above a vast lake. It was a divine dragon. In front of this divine dragon, Diju's original body that he had seen earlier was not even worth mentioning. Diju's original body was only a few hundred meters long, not even 1,000 meters long. However, the divine dragon before his eyes had a body that was 5,000 to 6,000 meters long. This divine dragon gave Duan Lingtian an inexplicable sense of oppression. It made it difficult for him to breathe and he almost suffocated. The dragon claws of this dragon. They're actually 8-clawed. Soon after, Duan Lingtian discovered that the divine dragon silhouette that was several thousand meters long had 8 sharp claws on each of its dragon claws. 8-clawed divine dragon? Gasp. At once, Duan Lingtian could not help but gasp. Chapter 1868. Heavens! The divine dragon that appeared before him was actually an 8-clawed divine dragon. Hualao? After taking a deep breath and regaining his senses, Duan Lingtian took the initiative to contact Hualao, who was in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, to inform Hualao of the situation he was currently facing. 8-clawed divine dragon? Soon after, Hualao also saw the 8-clawed divine dragon in front of Duan Lingtian. This 8-clawed divine dragon is not the main body. It's only a clone. A clone like this is usually used to pass down an inheritance. How did you find this place of inheritance? The inheritance of an 8-clawed divine dragon is not simple. Hualao, this is not a place of inheritance, but, Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. He knew Hualao had misunderstood. At the same time, he told Hualao the whole story and repeated what Duan Lingtian had said earlier. Dragonization ability? Did he really say he's going to give you dragonization ability? After listening to Duan Lingtian's words, Hualao's tone became heavier. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. First he said I've passed his test. Then he said he'll keep his promise to my master, Feng Qingyang, and give me dragonization ability. Hualao, what's dragonization ability? Do you still remember the enlightenment technique that I used on you back then? Hualao did not answer Duan Lingtian's question directly. Instead he asked another question. Of course I remember. Duan Lingtian nodded. It's because of the enlightenment technique you used on me that my true origin can transform into the sun true origin. Moreover, according to what you said earlier, the enlightenment technique can only be used once in a lifetime by any three-legged golden crow. Duan Lingtian was very grateful to Hualao for using the enlightenment technique on him. This was because it was a secret technique that Hualao could only use once in a lifetime. In his opinion, Hualao's favor for using the secret technique on him was higher than the sky and deeper than the sea. Hualao, why are you asking this? Could it be related to the dragonization ability? Duan Lingtian asked when he regained his senses. Yes. Hualao replied before he continued. Among the dragons, existences above the 7-clawed divine dragon can bestow the dragonization ability on humans. The process of bestowing the dragonization ability on humans is also the process of them enlightening the human. Every 7-clawed divine dragon can only bestow the dragonization ability on one human in a lifetime. Is it the same as the sun's fire that you bestowed on me, Hualao? Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he asked in surprise. His true origin had transformed into the sun true origin because of the sun's fire that Hualao had bestowed on him. Of course, the power of the sun's fire had not been fully displayed yet. It would increase as his cultivation base increased. Yes. Hualao replied again. Hualao, what's the dragonization ability? Duan Lingtian asked again. The dragonization ability refers to the ability to transform into a dragon. Of course, it doesn't transform you into a real divine dragon. Humans are humans after all. Even if they're bestowed with the dragonization ability, it's only equivalent to having an additional technique. Moreover, after a human is bestowed with the dragonization ability, although they can transform into a dragon, it's not a divine dragon but a dragon warrior in human form. Huolao continued to say, after a human is bestowed with the dragonization ability, they can control the growth of dragon scales on their skin and the growth of dragon claws on their limbs. Apart from that, they can also grow a dragon tail with just a thought. Dragon warrior? Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow. At the same time, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Previously, he was really worried that the dragonization ability would transform him into a real divine dragon. He was a human, a proper human. He could not accept being transformed into a divine dragon. Now that he heard Huolao's words, he naturally felt relieved. My doppelganger won't exist for long. Now relax your entire body. No matter what happens in your body, don't resist. At this moment, the eight-clawed divine dragon's silhouette spoke once again. Reading? Do as it says. It's about to bestow you with the dragonization ability. Huolao's voice immediately entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Immediately, Duan Lingtian instinctively relaxed his body, then closed his eyes and said, Senior, I'm done. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian sensed an extremely terrifying aura sweeping toward him. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was enveloped. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian clearly sensed waves of mysterious and unpredictable energy entering his body through the pores all over his body. This energy was relatively gentle at first. Later on, when it entered his body, it went on a rampage. If it were not for the eight-clawed divine dragon's warning, Duan Lingtian would have already activated the sun's true origin to stop this energy. Now, although he felt extremely uncomfortable, he gritted his teeth and endured it. As time passed, more and more energy entered his body, making him feel more and more uncomfortable. However, he still endured it. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian's forehead was covered in sweat. The soreness that came from all over his body caused Duan Lingtian's body to tremble violently. It was not that he wanted to, but he simply could not help it. This was because it was so painful that his teeth were about to bleed. Sweat poured down like rain, soaking his robes in the blink of an eye. It's not over yet? Half an hour passed. Duan Lingtian growled in his heart. Although it was only half an hour, it felt like half a century to him because it was too unbearable. An hour passed. 2 hours passed. 3 hours passed. 10 hours passed. Duan Lingtian continued to enjoy the pain that came from all over his body. At this moment he felt a little numb to it. Finally, a day passed. Duan Lingtian discovered the soreness in his body had disappeared. Alright, I've given you the ability to transform into a dragon. I've fulfilled my promise to Feng Qingyang. My clone is about to disappear. I'll now transmit all the information about the ability to transform into a dragon to you. Don't resist using your divine consciousness. Don't resist it, the eight-clawed divine dragon said. At the same time, Duan Lingtian discovered a vast amount of information had entered his mind from the outside. Since the eight-clawed divine dragon had warned him, Duan Lingtian did not resist the information. About 15 minutes later, the transmission of information ended. Little fellow, ascend to the Devata realm as soon as possible. We'll meet again sooner or later. At that time you must treat me to a drink. These were the words the eight-clawed divine dragon said to Duan Lingtian before the silhouette disappeared. Duan Lingtian was stunned when he saw the eight-clawed divine dragon's silhouette vanishing into thin air. When he regained his senses, he began to read the information about the dragonization ability that the eight-clawed divine dragon had given him. It's just like what Huolao said. Soon after, Duan Lingtian discovered the information he was reading was exactly the same as what Huolao had told him. However, there was an exception. The information taught him how to use the energy in his body to transform into a dragon. To be more precise, it taught him how to transform into a dragon warrior. It's quite complicated. Let's try transforming my left hand into a dragon arm first. After reading through the information, Duan Lingtian discovered it was a skill to transform into a dragon using his own energy and the dragon energy given by the eight-clawed divine dragon in his body. After studying it for a long time, he finally managed to activate the dragon energy to cover his left arm. Then, with just a thought, the dragon energy stirred and transformed into a divine dragon's arm. His palm had also transformed into a dragon claw. There were a total of 8 claws on the dragon claw. 8-clawed dragon warrior. At the same time, Elder Hu's voice resonated in the air. You're quite lucky to have obtained the dragonization ability from an 8-clawed divine dragon. You should know that an 8-clawed divine dragon is extremely rare even in the Devata realms. I didn't expect there to be one in this world. Moreover, it seems to have a good relationship with your master, Feng Qingyang. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given you the one and only chance to bestow the ability of dragonization. You must thank your master properly when you meet him in the future. Wu Lao said. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian regained his senses. He recalled the eight-clawed divine dragon's words. The eight-clawed divine dragon's words meant it had given him the once-in-a-lifetime chance to transform into a dragon because of his master, Feng Qingyang. My arm. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. At the same time, Duan Lingtian discovered there seemed to be a hidden explosive energy in his left arm after it had transformed into a dragon arm. Whoosh. He raised his dragon arm and clenched his dragon claw into a fist before he punched it out. Boom, boom, boom. The air in the path of the fist rippled as a thunderous explosion rang in the air. How powerful. The force of this punch made Duan Lingtian realize his strength after he had transformed into a dragon was definitely a qualitative improvement. Dragon warriors are best at close combat. Once they're in close combat, weapons won't work. Their only option is to use their fists and legs. Wu Lao continued to speak. Your current Sun True origin is comparable to an intermediate Divine Saint stage martial cultivator's strength. With your current Sun True origin and the dragon energy, once you transform into a dragon warrior, even a martial cultivator at the peak of the Divine Saint stage won't dare to fight you in close combat if you don't use any other techniques. After you transform into a dragon warrior, not only will your strength increase, but your defense will also become ridiculously powerful. Although it's still far from a true 8-clawed divine dragon, it's still much more powerful than an ordinary 6-clawed divine dragon. It's comparable to a 7-clawed divine dragon. Wu Lao finished his sentence in one breath. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian nodded even though he did not fully understand. I still need to master the method to fully transform into a dragon warrior. However, there's no rush for now. Duan Lingtian did not forget where he was. His eyes brightened as he looked at the lake in front of him. What a dense aura. It's coming from there. It seems like the dragon cleansing pool, the saint land of the dragons, is under this lake. The moment Duan Lingtian thought to himself, he moved and disappeared from his spot like a ghost. Splash. Chapter 1869. After entering the lake, Duan Lingtian noticed that the aura had become even stronger. It's at the bottom of the lake. After diving into the lake, Duan Lingtian dove straight to the bottom of the lake as if he was walking on flat ground. The lake water was no obstacle to him. Algae covered the bottom of the lake, but there was not a single fish to be seen. There. Relying on the sensing of that aura, Duan Lingtian arrived at a group of algae. However, when he saw that there was nothing else in front of him apart from the algae, he could not help but feel puzzled. What's going on? That aura clearly came from here. With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian manipulated the Sun True origin and sent the algae flying. After the algae were sent flying, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. A palace appeared in his field of vision. It was a palace embedded in the bottom of the lake. Now he was above the palace and a transparent film like a canopy separated him from the lake water. I should be able to enter. Duan Lingtian tried to pass through the transparent membrane. He touched it with one foot and was not obstructed at all. It really works. Soon after, Duan Lingtian passed through the transparent membrane that was like a sky curtain and appeared in the sky above the ancient and magnificent palace. Now, when he looked up, Duan Lingtian could see that there was an opening in the void. Behind this opening was the bottom of the lake where he had been previously. The dragon cleansing pool is inside this palace? Withdrawing his gaze, Duan Lingtian stepped into the air and appeared in front of the palace. Only now did he have the time to carefully examine the palace before him. The palace was not big, but it was filled with an ancient aura. It was mixed with the aura that had attracted Duan Lingtian to this place. The dragon cleansing pool is inside? Duan Lingtian did not stay outside the palace for long. His thoughts were all on the dragon cleansing pool. After pushing open the palace door and entering, Duan Lingtian was greeted by a white mist. 1. Read a book. Beneath the white mist was a huge pool filled with milky white liquid that emitted waves of attractive aura. This aura not only contained the rich aura of heaven and earth spiritual chi, but it also seemed to contain the aura of something else. This is the dragon cleansing pool? After Duan Lingtian activated his strange pupil, the white mist in front of him gradually thinned out, allowing him to see the dragon cleansing pond in its entirety. The dragon cleansing pond appeared to be an ordinary pond. However, there were 9 divine dragon statues all around it. The dragon tails of these divine dragon statues went straight into the dragon cleansing pool, while the dragon heads were attached to the edges of the palace. They opened their mouths and swallowed the faintly discernible spiritual qi of heaven and earth before transferring it into the dragon cleansing pool. Duan Lingtian came to the side of the dragon cleansing pool and tentatively reached his hand in. The milky white liquid in the dragon cleansing pool was cool to the touch. A rich spiritual qi of heaven and earth flowed into Duan Lingtian's body through his hand along with a mysterious power. After the mysterious power entered his body, the sun true origin in his body began to circulate according to the circulation route of the 9 dragons war sovereign technique. Moreover, even the dragon energy that the 8-clawed divine dragon had given him that allowed him to transform into a dragon warrior became restless as the mysterious power entered his body. It was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins, completely breaking free from Duan Lingtian's control. What's this? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed slightly as he withdrew his hand in time. Only then did the true sun origin energy and dragon power in his body come to a stop. Go on. There's no problem. At the same time, Huo Lao's voice rang in Duan Lingtian's ears, reminding him that there was no problem with the dragon cleansing pool. Huo Lao Duan Lingtian could not help but smile wryly when he heard Huo Lao's words. Although he trusted Huo Lao very much, he still had some lingering fear from his earlier experience. For this reason he immediately told Huo Lao about his experience. Don't worry. The dragon energy in your body only resonated with the energy in the dragon cleansing pool. If I'm not mistaken, not only will your cultivation base improve greatly after you enter the dragon cleansing pool, but you'll also obtain other benefits. Earlier you said that your sun true origin automatically circulated according to your cultivation method. This means your cultivation method resonated with that energy as well. Huo Lao said, it seems like the dragon cleansing pool is very suitable for you. Now, even I don't know what benefits you'll obtain after you enter the dragon cleansing pool. However, I'm certain there'll only be benefits and no disadvantages. That mysterious energy resonated with the dragon power in my body and the cultivation method I practice? Duan Lingtian's eyes widened. He did not find it strange that the mysterious energy resonated with the dragon energy in his body since he had just obtained the dragon energy not long ago. The place where he obtained the dragon energy was in the same place as the dragon cleansing pool. They were only separated by a lake. However, he was puzzled by the fact that his cultivation method resonated with the mysterious energy. The cultivation method I cultivate is the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique created by the Reincarnation Emperor Wu of Cloud Continent. Even the Reincarnation Emperor Wu himself didn't cultivate it. After I came to the Dao Martial Saint Land, I cultivated the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique. 9 divine dragon silhouettes would appear in my body to move the heaven and earth spirit energy and true origin. By right, since the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique was created by the Reincarnation Emperor Wu, it's impossible for it to have any connection with the energy in the dragon cleansing pool in the Saint Land. However, what's going on? Duan Lingtian was puzzled. The 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique was created by the Reincarnation Emperor Wu who once stood at the peak of Cloud Continent. However, even if the Rebirth Martial Emperor was at his peak, he was not worth mentioning compared to the current him. No matter how powerful the Reincarnation Emperor Wu was, he was only at the peak of Cloud Continent. Currently, he could be considered as a powerhouse in the entire Debussy subterranean. The dragon cleansing pool was the saint land of the Debussy subterranean dragons. No matter how Duan Lingtian thought about it, it was difficult for him to connect the two together. However, there was a connection that even he could not make sense of. Forget it. Since I can't figure it out, I'll just stop thinking about it. Since Huo Lao said there's no problem with the dragon cleansing pool, there should be no problem with it. After Duan Lingtian regained his senses, he no longer thought about it and leaped into the dragon cleansing pool in a flash. What? As soon as Duan Lingtian entered the dragon cleansing pool, he discovered that the milky white liquid in the dragon cleansing pool had evaporated his long robe when it came into contact with the milky white liquid. If I knew this would happen, I would have taken off my clothes before coming in. Duan Lingtian shook his head when he saw this. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian seemed to have sensed something. His eyes suddenly widened before his body stiffened as though he had lost his soul. He fell and sank into the dragon cleansing pool. What's going on? Before his body fell, Duan Lingtian realized he had lost control of his body. However, his current situation was much better than when he had first entered the dragon cleansing pool. Apart from not being able to control his body, Duan Lingtian could still control his divine consciousness and observe his surroundings. I can control my body again. After a while, Duan Lingtian realized he had regained control of his body. After regaining control of his body, Duan Lingtian was shocked to discover that his body had become a mess in just a short while. First, the liquid heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool had surged into his body. Following that was the mysterious energy. It would be fine if that was all. The problem was that even the dragon energy hidden in his body had joined in. Together with his sun true origin and the two energies from the dragon cleansing pool, they were circulating according to the cultivation route of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique. From the beginning to the end, Duan Lingtian did not actively circulate the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique. It was circulating on its own. In fact, Duan Lingtian could not even stop even if he wanted to. He could only watch from the side. Is this still my body? Duan Lingtian felt bitter as he sensed the 4 energies circulating in his 99 saint veins. He felt as though his body had been taken over. Fortunately, everything seemed to be stable for now. His cultivation was also rising at an extremely terrifying speed. The liquid heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool was on a completely different level compared to the mystical sky mansion spirit pool. With Duan Lingtian's current cultivation base, it would not take long for him to completely absorb the latter. The former, on the other hand, seemed endless. Based on this speed, it won't be long before my cultivation base breaks through to the Mastery Eminent Saint stage. Duan Lingtian could clearly feel his cultivation base was advancing rapidly. If he maintained this speed, he would be able to break through to the Mastery Eminent Saint stage in 10 to 15 days at most. What's going on? Just as Duan Lingtian was calming down, he discovered 2 of the 4 energies in his body were not behaving properly. The liquid heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool and the sun true origin in his body were still fine. However, when the mysterious energy brought the dragon energy away from the group, the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique stopped circulating on its own. Duan Lingtian could only circulate the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique on its own. As expected, the circulation of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique is related to the mysterious energy. However, what's it trying to do now? Duan Lingtian discovered the mysterious energy had brought the dragon energy to every part of his body. Soon after, Duan Lingtian discovered his skin had begun to change. Scales that were clearly visible appeared on his skin. They were dragon scales. Not only that, but his hands and feet had also turned into dragon claws. Each of his dragon claws had 8 claws that gleamed coldly as though they could tear everything apart. What's going on? I haven't even mastered the method to completely transform into a dragon warrior, but it can help me transform into a dragon warrior. Chapter 1870. Duan Lingtian was even more shocked by what happened next. What? Read the book? Duan Lingtian discovered the dragon scales and claws on his body had undergone a shocking transformation when the mysterious energy merged with his body. Not only did his dragon scales become thicker, but they were also as black as ink. As for his dragon claws, each of his dragon claws originally had 8 claws. However, after the mysterious energy merged with his dragon claws, each of his dragon claws had a 9th claw. In other words, each of his dragon claws had 9 claws. 9 claws? Duan Lingtian was dumbstruck as he looked at his dragon claw. His face was filled with astonishment and disbelief. As far as he knew, the 9-clawed divine dragon was the most powerful existence among the dragons. Even in the Devata realms, a fully grown 9-clawed divine dragon was an overlord. They were as powerful as the heavenly emperors in the Devata realms. Previously, he had been bestowed with the dragonization ability by the 8-clawed divine dragon, allowing him to transform into an 8-clawed dragon warrior. However, he seemed to have transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior now. An 8-clawed dragon warrior is bestowed with the dragonization ability by the 8-clawed divine dragon. A 9-clawed dragon warrior is undoubtedly bestowed with the dragonization ability by the 8-clawed divine dragon. However, the mysterious energy in the dragon cleansing pool has bestowed me with the 9th claw and transformed me into a 9-clawed dragon warrior? Duan Lingtian clenched his dragon claws slightly and stretched his limbs. He could clearly sense the explosive power in his body. For example, the 9-clawed dragon claw on his left arm was much stronger than his previous 8 claws. Apart from that, the dragon scales on his body had also transformed. They had become thicker. Hua Lao. Duan Lingtian immediately called out to Hua Lao when he saw this. How did you do it? Hua Lao's voice trembled when he discovered Duan Lingtian had transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. A nine-clawed dragon warrior is as rare as a phoenix's feather in the Devata realms. How did you become a nine-clawed dragon warrior? After knowing Hualao for so long, Duan Lingtian had never seen Hualao lose his composure like this. You want it? Look. At this moment he was certain he was a nine-clawed dragon warrior. Hualao, it's because of the mysterious power I told you about earlier, Duan Lingtian explained. It's the power that resonates with the dragon power in my body and the cultivation method I practice. Before Hualao could reply, Duan Lingtian seemed to have sensed something and his expression changed abruptly. It's gone. What the hell is going on? If I'm not mistaken, the mysterious force you mentioned should be related to the nine-clawed divine dragon. It seems like a nine-clawed divine dragon had once appeared in this mundane realm. If a divine dragon below the eight-clawed divine dragon encountered this force, it would cleanse their meridians and raise their innate talent. However, if an eight-clawed divine dragon encountered this force, it would have a chance of transforming into a nine-clawed divine dragon. Hualao's voice was solemn. Naturally, even if an eight-clawed divine dragon encountered this force, it would only have a chance of transforming into a nine-clawed divine dragon. However, since you're an eight-clawed dragon warrior, the conditions for transforming aren't that harsh. For this reason, it directly transformed you into a nine-clawed dragon warrior. Although a nine-clawed dragon warrior is not as strong as a true nine-clawed divine dragon, it's comparable to a true eight-clawed divine dragon. With your Sun true origin that's comparable to an intermediate divine saint stage powerhouse, if you activate your dragon power and transform into a nine-clawed dragon warrior, you'll be able to easily defeat an ordinary powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage with just your combat ability alone. When Hualao reached the end of his sentence, a hint of shock could be heard in his voice. So strong? Duan Lingtian gasped. When Hualao found out Duan Lingtian could transform into an eight-clawed dragon warrior, he had merely said that even a powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage would not dare to engage in a melee battle with him if he did not use any techniques. However, Hualao had just said Duan Lingtian could easily defeat an ordinary powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage without using any techniques. Was the difference not a little too big? If I'm not mistaken, since that force resonated with your cultivation method, I'm sure your cultivation method must have undergone some changes as well. Hualao continued to speak. The benefits left behind by the nine-clawed divine dragon are definitely not simple. Cultivation method? Changes? Upon hearing Hualao's words, Duan Lingtian began to carefully observe the nine dragons' war sovereign technique circulation path. In the beginning it was still fine. However, as time passed, his face was filled with shock and disbelief. It's really changed. Duan Lingtian discovered although the nine dragons' war sovereign technique circulation path was still the same as before, many inconspicuous details had changed. However, the changes in these inconspicuous details had doubled the efficiency of his cultivation. This is the benefit left behind by the nine-clawed divine dragon? The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, his breathing quickened again. He felt his trip to the dragon cleansing pool was worth it. Even if his cultivation base did not improve, it was still worth it. Whether it was the nine-clawed dragon warrior or the changes in the nine dragons' war sovereign technique, the impact on his future would be immeasurable. I wonder if there's any mysterious force left behind by the nine-clawed divine dragon in the dragon cleansing pool. Following that, Duan Lingtian began to search the dragon cleansing pool with his divine consciousness. However, he discovered he could no longer find any mysterious force left behind by the nine-clawed divine dragon. Hualao, that force seems to have really disappeared. Will it appear again in the future? Duan Lingtian asked Hualao. It won't appear again. Hualao said. At the same time, the members of the dragons who entered the dragon cleansing pool after 5,000 years won't be able to improve their innate talent anymore. At most, they'll be able to rely on the liquefied heaven and earth spirit chi here to rapidly improve their cultivation base. This is because the force left behind by the nine-clawed divine dragon has been taken by you. It's no longer here. Duan Lingtian was dumbfounded when he heard Hualao's words. Was that so? If the dragons found out that something like this had happened after he entered the dragon cleansing pool, they would probably want to grind his bones to dust. After all, the dragon cleansing pool was of great significance to the dragons not only because it contained 5,000 years of heaven and earth spirit chi, but also because it contained the special force left behind by the nine-clawed divine dragon. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath before he regained his senses. I can't let the dragons find out about what happened here. Otherwise they won't let this matter rest. Duan Ling Tian was very careful about this. That's right. Dragon tail. Huo Lao said earlier that I can grow a dragon tail in my dragon warrior state. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself as he turned to look behind him. Whoosh. As soon as Duan Ling Tian turned around to look behind him, a streak of light that looked like a black lightning bolt shot out from behind him. As the black lightning-like shadow stopped, a long tail appeared in front of him. It was a dragon tail covered in black dragon scales. Unlike the tails of ordinary divine dragons, this tail did not have a mane at the end. Instead, it was very sharp like a blade and gleamed with a cold light. Duan Ling Tian was naturally not used to a human suddenly having a tail. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. However, after he got used to it, not only could he control his tail freely, but he could even use it to attack. Whether it was a whip or a stab, it was extremely powerful and terrifying. Apart from that, Duan Ling Tian also discovered that he had transformed into a dragon form. The current him had already reached the point where he could control and release the dragon warrior state at will. Without realizing it, Duan Ling Tian had fallen in love with his dragon warrior state. This was because he possessed the body of an 8-clawed divine dragon. The powerful body of an 8-clawed divine dragon was not something a weak human body could compare to. Although his body was stronger than an ordinary human's, it was still incomparable to his dragon warrior state. In the end, Duan Ling Tian decided to lie in the dragon cleansing pool in his dragon warrior state as he absorbed the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool to cultivate. With the improved 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, Duan Ling Tian's cultivation speed was now twice as fast as before. In 10 days at most, my cultivation base will definitely break through to the Mastery Eminent Saint stage. At that time, the Sun True Origin in my body will be raised to the point where it'll be comparable to a Mastery Divine Saint stage powerhouse. With the cultivation environment in the Dragon Cleansing Pool and the improvement of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, Duan Ling Tian was filled with confidence. The liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy surged into Duan Ling Tian's body continuously. The 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique was also converting the heaven and earth spirit energy into Duan Ling Tian's Sun True Origin at the fastest speed. Time continued to pass by quietly. Duan Ling Tian, who was enjoying the baptism of the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool, seemed to have forgotten about time. Duan Ruffing and the other 2 were waiting outside the dragon cleansing pool's entrance. As for the patriarch of the dragons, Di Shan, he had long disappeared. It's almost 3 months. Why hasn't Tian come out yet? Duan Ruffing, who was sitting cross-legged in the air, suddenly opened his eyes. He frowned slightly as he looked at the open door that led to the dragon cleansing pool. If it was not for the fact that his son's soul pearl was still in his hands, he would have thought something had happened to his son in the dragon cleansing pool. After all, it had been 3 months. Based on his knowledge, even the dragons who entered the dragon cleansing pool 5,000 years ago had only stayed in the dragon cleansing pool for 2 months. Naturally, this was what he had heard from Di Shan. According to Di Shan, after the dragons entered the dragon cleansing pool, as long as their innate talent and cultivation base had risen to a certain level, they would be sent out in advance. The length of time one could stay in the pool depended on one's potential. Duan Ruffing was unaware that the reason the dragons were sent out in advance after they entered the dragon cleansing pool was due to the energy left behind by the 9-clawed divine dragon. Since its existence depended on the heaven and earth spirit energy, it was unwilling to let the dragons absorb too much of the heaven and earth spirit energy. Chapter 1871. Without the 9-clawed divine dragon's power, it meant Duan Ling Tian would not be forcefully sent out by it. What? Reading? In that case, Duan Ling Tian might even be able to absorb all of the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool. At that time, how much would his improvement be? Nobody knew. However, it would definitely not be less than 2 stages. After all, the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy in the pool had been accumulating for 5,000 years. Naturally, Duan Ling Tian was unaware of this. Inside the dragon cleansing pool, Duan Ling Tian did not know how much time had passed when he opened his eyes and looked at the level of the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool. He discovered he had only absorbed less than 1/10 of the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool. After absorbing less than 1/10 of the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool, my cultivation base has broken through from the intermediate divine saint stage to the peak of the divine saint stage. If I absorb all of it, won't I be able to break through from the divine saint stage to the exemplary saint stage? The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, his breathing quickened. He did not expect the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy in the dragon cleansing pool would be so ridiculous. It was so ridiculous that he felt as though he was dreaming. However, with so much heaven and earth spirit energy, how long will it take for me to leave? Soon after, Duan Lingtian thought of this. However, before this thought left his mind, Duan Lingtian felt something flash before his eyes. In the next instant he felt like he was floating in the air. Then he landed on the ground. Tian. At the same time, a familiar voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears. He could tell it was his father, Duan Rufeng's voice. If it was any other time, Duan Lingtian would be happy to hear Duan Rufeng's voice. However, at this moment, how did I get out? Duan Lingtian was dumbfounded when he saw the valley before his eyes. After all, he had only absorbed less than a tenth of the liquefied heaven and earth spiritual energy in the dragon cleansing pool. I've only absorbed less than 1/10 of the liquefied heaven and earth spirit chi in the dragon cleansing pool. Why would I be sent out? Could it be related to the idea I had? My last thought seemed to be get out. Could it be because of this? Duan Lingtian was dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. Rumble. Duan Lingtian only came back to his senses when he heard the noise. He didn't have time to respond to his father, Duan Rufeng, and immediately rushed toward the void door that was about to close. To be exact, it was the door that led to the dragon cleansing pond. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian's figure flashed out, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed in before the two doors closed. However, even though he managed to rush through the gate, he was not teleported into the dragon cleansing pond. He appeared on the other side of the void door, still inside the canyon. We can't go in? At this moment, Duan Lingtian finally realized this. When he raised his head again, he instinctively looked at the void door that was hovering in the air. However, he discovered that after the door closed, it gradually disappeared. First, it turned into a shadow before it completely disappeared before his eyes. What are you? Duan Rufeng had a puzzled expression on his face. He had no idea what was going on since he was outside the dragon cleansing pond. Earlier, when he saw his son coming out, he was slightly happy. However, not only did his son ignore him, but he even wanted to enter the dragon cleansing pond again. However, the dragon cleansing pond would only open once every 5,000 years. Once someone entered, no one else would be allowed to enter for another 5,000 years. After the person who entered came out, the door to the dragon cleansing pond would close and would only open again after 5,000 years. At that time, the door to the dragon cleansing pond could be opened again with the sun key and moon key. Father, At this moment, Duan Lingtian finally had the time to respond to Duan Rufeng. However, he really did not know what to say. All he could do was smile bitterly. Junior brother Lingtian. Young mansion master. At some point, Gu Li and Kumi who were cultivating in the air had also opened their eyes. When they saw Duan Lingtian they were pleasantly surprised. 1. Reading? They sighed in relief when they saw Duan Lingtian had come out safely. In the end, under the watchful eyes of Duan Rufeng and the other two, Duan Lingtian told them about his blunder. Due to this blunder, he had lost the opportunity to cultivate by absorbing a large amount of liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy from the dragon cleansing pond. Previously he had a chance to break through to the divine saint stage or even the exemplary saint stage, but he did not cherish it. If God gave him another chance he would not even think about leaving the dragon cleansing pond. Damn you. Get out. It was all because of the thought of leaving the dragon cleansing pond that he was sent out. Is this even possible? Gu Li was dumbfounded. Initially he thought Duan Lingtian was sent out because he had obtained enough benefits. He did not expect Duan Lingtian would be sent out after absorbing less than 1/10 of the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy from the dragon cleansing pond. Moreover, he was the one who sent himself out. Although it was unintentional, it was an indisputable fact. As for Duan Rufeng and Kumi, they fell silent for a moment. All of them felt sorry for Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's experience was indeed heart-wrenching. Forget it. If it's fated, it'll happen. If it's not fated, there's no need to force it. It's good that I've gotten over this. I'm fine. Duan Lingtian quickly got over it when he saw the three people who were concerned about him. So what if I'm at the peak of the eminent saint stage? There's no need to rush my cultivation base. I'll break through sooner or later. Moreover, his biggest gain from entering the dragon cleansing pond this time was not the liquefied heaven and earth spirit energy that raised his cultivation base. Instead, it was the transformation of the 9-clawed dragon warrior and the 9 dragons war sovereign technique. Both of them were much more valuable than merely raising his cultivation base. Both of them had far-reaching benefits. Moreover, it only took me less than 3 months to break through from the intermediate eminent saint stage to the mastery eminent saint stage. Just this alone is enough to make many people envious. Since he had gotten over it, Duan Lingtian naturally had gotten over it as well. Duan Ruffing and the other two felt relieved when they saw Duan Lingtian did not take this matter to heart. They were really worried Duan Lingtian would take this matter to heart. This matter isn't settled yet? When we leave, I'll ask Di Shan again to see if there's still a chance to enter the dragon cleansing pond. Duan Ruffing comforted Duan Lingtian. Father, there's no need for that. Duan Lingtian shook his head. The door that led to the dragon cleansing pond had disappeared. Even if he asked Di Shan, the answer would be the same. He was certain of this. He believed his father knew this as well. As for his father's words, it was mostly to comfort him. Although Duan Lingtian said there was no need for that, before they left the dragons, Duan Ruffing casually asked when he returned the moon key to the dragon cleansing pond to Di Shan. Clan leader Di Shan, is it possible for someone to return if they're sent out of the dragon cleansing pond after less than a month? Impossible. Di Shan shook his head. No matter how long a person has been in the dragon cleansing pond, it's impossible for them to return. The dragon cleansing pond only opens once every 5,000 years, and only one person can enter at a time. Naturally, Di Shan did not expect Duan Ruffing was asking on behalf of Duan Lingtian. The reason he did not expect this was because he knew Duan Lingtian had stayed in the dragon cleansing pond for more than 2 months. In his opinion, it was normal, and there was no possibility of him being sent out by accident. When Duan Lingtian heard Di Shan's words, he gave up completely. Although he did not think it was possible for him to return to the dragon cleansing pond, he knew it was impossible. When he heard his father asking Di Shan this question, his heart that was almost dead was revived, and a glimmer of hope rose in his heart. However, when he heard Di Shan's answer, a look of realization appeared on his face. At the same time, he felt slightly disappointed in the depths of his heart. After watching Duan Lingtian and the other three leave, Di Shan withdrew his gaze from Duan Lingtian's back and sighed. In just a blink of an eye, he seemed to have aged several decades. The Dragon Clan could be said to have suffered a double loss in this 5-year pact. Not only did they lose Di Ju, the future clan leader of the dragons, but they even lost the dragon cleansing pond that only opened once every 5,000 years. If this matter spread to the dragons in the upper province, he would definitely be criticized when he went to the dragons in the upper province in the future. After all, there had never been such a useless clan leader in the lower province before. Meanwhile, after Duan Lingtian and the others left the dragons, they returned to the Azure Cloud Mansion. After returning to the Azure Cloud Mansion, I'll spend some time with Mother, Little Fei, and Yen. After that, it's time for me to leave the lower province and head to the upper province to look for Kerr. During the journey, Duan Lingtian took out the plan that he had long prepared and was prepared to carry it out. Whether it was him, his family, or the Azure Cloud Mansion, it would not benefit him at all if he continued to stay in the lower province. Apart from that, I'll have to make a trip back to Windfall Nation before leaving the lower province to see if Tianwu has returned or not. After that, I'll bring senior brother, Uncle Feng, and the others to the Azure Cloud Mansion. It's much safer in the Azure Cloud Mansion than in Windfall Nation. Although Duan Lingtian was preparing to head to the upper province, he did not forget about his family and friends in the past. Duan Lingtian was unaware that during the 3 months he had spent in the dragon cleansing pond, news about him had already spread out. Duan Lingtian was the lucky person who obtained the Devil Seal tablet a few years ago. He was the son of the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion and the young Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Naturally, the people who heard the news were in an uproar. How can this be? The person who obtained the Devil Seal tablet back then is actually the young Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion? Initially, I thought that person had completely disappeared. I can't believe not only did he not disappear, but he's also in the Azure Cloud Mansion. He's actually the young Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. As the news spread, similar discussions began to spread everywhere. Outside the residence of the dragons, one of the 5-clawed divine dragon elders, the 5-clawed green dragon, Qin Yan, hovered in the air as he looked in the direction of the Azure Cloud Mansion. He muttered to himself, Duan Lingtian, the Azure Cloud Mansion. Prepare to welcome the arrival of the powerhouses from the upper province. I'll immediately head to the upper province and spread the news that the young Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian, has obtained the Devil Seal tablet. As soon as Qing Yin finished speaking, he disappeared in a flash. Chapter 1872. Tian, judging by the time, Xiaolan and Bai Yao should have returned to the Azure Cloud Mansion by now? When they were about to reach the Azure Cloud Mansion's estate, Duan Ruffing seemed to have recalled something and said to Duan Lingtian, Xiaolan? Bai Yao. Upon hearing these two names, Duan Lingtian's body trembled before he came to a halt. When he looked in the direction of the Azure Cloud Mansion again, a hint of anxiety could be seen in his eyes. When he first came to the Azure Cloud Mansion after finding out his father was the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, he also thought of Xiaolan and Bai Yao, who were brought away by his mother from Cloud Continent. However, later on he heard from his mother that Xiaolan and Bai Yao had gone out to train and would only be back after some time. At that moment, he who had not prepared himself to face the two girls could not help but heave a sigh of relief. However, when he heard his father mentioning the two girls, he froze as though he was struck by lightning. Ling? When Guli saw Duan Lingtian had stopped, he stopped as well and looked at Duan Lingtian in confusion. However, the moment he opened his mouth before he could continue speaking, he was stopped by Duan Ruffing, who had stopped as well. He immediately shut his mouth. At this moment, Duan Lingtian turned a blind eye to the three people who had stopped next to him. His thoughts had already drifted back to many years ago when he was still in Aurora City and the Crimson Sky Kingdom. It was also during that period of time that he met Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao. He still remembered the first time he met Xiaolan was at the Xiao clan in Aurora City. At that time, the Xiao clan had issued a Hidden Dragon invitation for the sake of ranking on the Hidden Dragon ranking. He could still clearly remember the scene when Xiaolan appeared at that time. The young girl's silky long hair was like a waterfall that cascaded down. Under the hazy morning mist, she looked like a fairy who had descended from the heavens. She was so beautiful that she could topple cities. At that time, Xiaolan was also a famous beauty in Aurora City. She had many admirers. As for the first time he met Princess Bai Yao, it was at the Crimson Sky Kingdom's third prince's estate. At that time she was sitting next to the third prince. Her beautiful hair fell behind her like a waterfall. Her pretty cheeks made people unable to help but be attracted by them at first glance. Her cherry-like mouth made people want to kiss and suck on it. From the very beginning he had treated the two girls as his friends. Who would have thought that at some unknown time, the two girls had actually fallen deeply in love with him? Xiaolan even left Aurora City and came to the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Imperial City for him. Originally, Duan Lingtian thought that after he left the Crimson Sky Kingdom, the two ladies would gradually forget about him. However, who would have thought that the two girls did not forget about him even after he left? Instead, after he left, they often stayed by his mother's side to fulfill their filial duties. Perhaps, if it was not for this, his mother would not have brought the two girls away from the Crimson Sky Kingdom and the mortal continent, Cloud Continent. So many years have passed. Perhaps their feelings for me are no longer the same as before. After all, they were still young at that time, and it could only be considered as their first awakening of love. After a short moment, Duan Lingtian returned to his senses and thought to himself. Naturally, this was only his own speculation. If this was the case, it would be a good ending for him, his two fiancées, and even Tianwu. If it was possible, he was willing to treat the two girls as his biological sisters. Moreover, they had been getting along well with his mother all these years, so it was not a big deal for him to acknowledge them as his biological sisters. Although this was what he thought, Duan Lingtian knew very well that this was only his own opinion. He had no idea what Xiaolan and Bai Yao were thinking. What they thought was the most important. If they had let it go, everything would be fine. However, if they had not, he really did not know what to do now. Of course, he would definitely not shirk this responsibility. After they continued on their journey, Duan Lingtian looked at Duan Ruffing. Just as he was about to speak, he did not know what to ask. "Wanna see? Book Tian, what do you think of Xiaolan and Bai Yao?" Duan Ruffing asked with a solemn expression. "Father, I only treated them as good friends back then and I didn't have any thoughts about them. After I left the Crimson Sky Kingdom, I thought they would have forgotten about me. I didn't expect that not only did they not forget about me, but they're also so good to my mother. They're even filial piety for me," Duan Lingtian said with a wry smile on his face. "Don't blame your mother. She only brought the two girls to the Azure Cloud Mansion because she saw how devoted they are to you. Moreover, they're not bad people. She's doing this for your own good," Duan Ruffing said. "I understand." Duan Lingtian nodded. Although his mother's actions were a little exaggerated, she did not have any ill intentions. After all, they were two good girls who had spent a lot of time with each other. As a mother, she would definitely want them to be her daughter-in-law. He could understand his mother's thoughts. It was just that he did not know how to face Xiaolan and Bai Yao. Father, I haven't seen them for many years. In your opinion, how do they feel about me now? Duan Lingtian asked after he took a deep breath. How do I know how they feel about you? How do I know? When you return, you'll know how they feel about you when you face them. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's question, Duan Ruffing could not help but laugh. As a father, how could he possibly know how those two girls felt about his son right now? Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. What would come would come. There were some things that he would have to face personally sooner or later. Tian. All of a sudden, Duan Rufing's expression turned solemn again. When Duan Lingtian looked at him, he said, whether it's Xiaolan or Bai Yao, your mother and I have the same opinion. We won't allow you to bully them. They're good girls. It's not easy for them to leave their hometown and come here for you. There was one thing that Duan Ruffing did not tell Duan Lingtian. That was, after he brought his wife, Xiaolan and Bai Yao to the Azure Cloud Mansion, he and his wife had asked for their opinion. If they wanted to return, they could send them back at any time. However, the answer they received was the same no matter how many times they asked. They wanted to stay. The reason Duan Ruffing did not tell Duan Lingtian about this was because he was worried Duan Lingtian would feel pressured after learning about this. It was better for him to face this himself. Naturally, even if he had to face it himself, he still had to tell his son some things first so he would not hurt the two good girls. Father, how can I bully them? Upon hearing Duan Rufing's words, Duan Lingtian could not help but smile wryly. I've discussed this with your mother. You haven't seen them for many years. If your feelings for each other have faded and you're not willing to be together, we won't force you. At that time, your mother and I will take them in as our goddaughters. On the other hand, your mother and I hope that both of you can give it a try. If both of you can be together, it'll naturally be a happy ending. If you can't, I can only say that both of you are not fated to be together. Duan Ruffing continued to say. Duan Lingtian nodded. This was the only thing he could do now. All he had to do was wait and see what Xiaolan and Bai Yao thought. Naturally, Duan Lingtian hoped that they would no longer have feelings for him like they did in the past. In that case, not only would he not hurt the two girls, but he would also be able to answer to his two fiancées in Tianwu. As a man, it was impossible for him to not want to have many wives and concubines and enjoy the happiness of having multiple wives. However, at this moment, Duan Lingtian had no choice but to consider the feelings of his two fiancées in Tianwu, who was nowhere to be found before he could enjoy the happiness of having two wives. This was especially true when his fiancée, Kerr, was still practicing Zoroastrianism and was waiting for him to bring her back. If he were to be together with Xiaolan and Bai Yao at this time, would he still be considered a human? If their feelings for me haven't changed, I can only promise them one thing. After I bring Kerr back and find Tianwu, I'll ask Kerr, Tianwu and Little Fair for their opinions. After I get their permission, I'll try to get along with them for a while. If it's possible, we'll be together. If it's not possible, I'll ask my parents to take them in as their goddaughters. We'll be siblings. Soon after, Duan Lingtian made up his mind. At the very least, he would be able to deal with any situation now. After some time, a vast lake appeared in front of Duan Lingtian and the others. It was the Crouching Dragon Lake that surrounded the main mansion of Azure Cloud Mansion. Seeing the Crouching Dragon Lake meant they were home. Previously, Duan Lingtian was a wanderer in the Dao Martial Saint Land. He did not have a home. However, when he found out his father was the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion and came to look for the Azure Cloud Mansion, he treated the Azure Cloud Mansion as his home in the Dao Martial Saint Land. This was because his parents, his family were all here. Wherever his family was, that was where his home was. After returning to the Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian immediately went to look for Li Fei. The reason he did not look for his mother immediately was not because he was unfilial. It was because his father had gone to look for his mother. If he went there now, he would only be a third wheel for his parents. Father. As soon as Duan Lingtian entered the house, he saw a little figure pouncing on him and leaping into his arms. It was none other than his son, Duan Yen Tian. Nien, did you miss me? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile as he patted his son's head. Yes. Duan Yen Tian nodded like a chick pecking on rice. His bright eyes looked around. Not only did Niener miss you, but I miss you as well. Mother, father is back. Father is back. Without waiting for Duan Lingtian's reply, Duan Yen Tian exclaimed excitedly as he turned to look into the room. Soon after, a graceful figure walked out from inside. It was none other than Li Fei, who was smiling. "You're back." "Yes, I'm back," Duan Lingtian replied as he took a few steps forward. He carried his son with one hand and reached out his other hand to hold Li Fei's back before hugging Li Fei domineeringly. Chapter 1873. He hugged his son with one hand and Li Fei with the other. First lookbook. At this moment, Duan Lingtian felt like he was the happiest person in the world. "Little Fei, Nyener is all grown up now. Let's hold a wedding ceremony," Duan Lingtian said softly to Li Fei. Currently, Li Fei was not married to him. At most, she could only be considered as his fiancée. Only after the wedding ceremony would Li Fei be considered his wife. "I'll wait for Sister Kerr." However, when Li Fei heard Duan Lingtian's words, she said firmly, "I've discussed this with her before. We'll be your brides together. Now that she's involved in Zoroastrianism in the upper province, how can I be at ease and marry you? Scoundrel, promise me, all right? Otherwise I'll feel uneasy." "Why do you have to do this?" Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. However, when his eyes met Li Fei's unwavering gaze, he could not help but soften. "All right, I promise you. However, although we haven't held the wedding ceremony yet, in my heart, no matter if it's you or both of you are already my wife." Upon hearing this, Li Fei did not say anything. She merely hugged Duan Lingtian tightly and enjoyed this moment of tenderness. Li Fei hugged Duan Lingtian tightly as though she was afraid she would lose him in the next moment. "Scoundrel. When do you plan to go to the upper province?" After an unknown period of time, Li Fei asked softly. "Soon." Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he replied. "I must bring Sister Kerr back, and her child." Li Fei said, "Unfortunately, I'm useless. I can't help you." When Li Fei reached the end of her sentence, a hint of guilt could be heard in her tone. "How can you be useless? You're not allowed to say such things again. If not for you, how could I have such a cute son?" Duan Lingtian shook his head. He then glanced at his son in his left arm, only to find that the little guy had fallen asleep while leaning on him. Moreover, he was in a deep sleep. Even when they spoke, he did not wake up. "You left for more than 3 months. Nyener has been talking about you since a month ago. He even asked me if you didn't want him anymore." Although I explained, he still often woke up from his sleep and kept calling Dad. Li Fei followed Duan Lingtian's gaze and looked at the little fellow with a gratified expression. Originally, she was worried that her son would not know his father, Duan Lingtian, because he had not met him before. She did not expect that her son would completely accept him as his father after just a short period of contact. Perhaps it was because they were connected by blood, but even though Duan Yentian and Duan Lingtian had only known each other for a short time, Duan Yentian was very reliant on Duan Lingtian. "Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao are back." As though she was reminded of something, Li Fei looked at Duan Lingtian and said, "I heard about it from Dad." Duan Lingtian nodded. Li Fei leaned on Duan Lingtian and said softly, "I know you're not in the mood to accept other women now, but Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao are really different. After they came to the Azure Cloud Mansion, they treated you like their own mother and took care of you. I know it's because of you that they're treating you like this. When Kerr returns, you can accept them. I don't have any objections." Li Fei took the initiative to express her opinion when she reached the end of her sentence. It was as though she was not jealous at all. Naturally, it would be a lie if she said she was not jealous. However, she was also a kind woman. She knew how Duan Lingtian's mother, Li Ro, felt. At the same time, she was also touched by Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao's devotion to Duan Lingtian. Due to this reason, she did not reject them. "What are you talking about? We're not even in the picture yet." Duan Lingtian shook his head. At the same time, he hugged Li Fei even tighter. Li Fei's understanding almost melted his heart. What did Duan Lingtian do to deserve such a wife in his life? It was simply a great blessing. Back then they fell in love with me because they were young girls. Now that so many years have passed, perhaps they no longer have the same feelings as before. Duan Lingtian said. Duan Lingtian did not notice that the moment his words left his mouth, a bitter smile appeared on Li Fei's face. This was because she knew very well that even though so many years had passed, Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao's hearts had never changed. They had always been with her man. Naturally, although she knew this, she did not point it out. In the next few days, Duan Lingtian did not leave the house. Instead, he stayed by his wife and son's side and kept them company. It would not be long before he left the lower province and headed to the upper province. For this reason he treasured the time he spent alone with his wife and son. A few days later Rong Yuan came to look for Duan Lingtian. "Young Mansion Master, Lord Mansion Master has asked me to invite you over. Apart from him and his wife Xiaolan and Bai Yao are also there." When Rong Yuan reached the end of his sentence he added another sentence. What was meant to come would come in the end. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and nodded. "Please wait a moment, Elder Rong." After greeting Li Fei, Duan Lingtian patted his son's head who was next to Li Fei before he left with Rong Yuan. They made their way to the mansion where his father and mother lived. Although Duan Lingtian was mentally prepared, he still felt slightly anxious. He would be meeting Xiaolan and Bai Yao in a while. Although Duan Lingtian was not mentally prepared, he knew he could not avoid it and he should not avoid it. There were some things that he had to face personally. Father, mother. After greeting Duan Ruffing and Li Ro, Duan Lingtian's gaze landed on the two young women next to Li Ro. These two young ladies were both devastatingly beautiful. Just by standing there, they exuded a sense of charm, causing everything around them to lose their luster. With just a glance, Duan Lingtian recognized the two young women. They were Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao. Although many years had passed, Duan Lingtian could still recognize them with just a glance. Although their appearances had changed quite a bit compared to before, apart from the fact that they no longer looked like young girls, there were not many other changes to them. When Duan Lingtian was looking at Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao, the two young women were also looking at him. Duan Lingtian. When Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao saw Duan Lingtian, they were stunned for a moment before they regained their senses. Their cheeks involuntarily blushed, revealing the shyness of a young woman. Although many years had passed since the last time they saw Duan Lingtian, it was still not over yet. However, according to their own feelings, the last time they saw Duan Lingtian seemed like yesterday. This was because ever since they came to the Azure Cloud Mansion, other than accompanying Li Ro, they had been focusing on their cultivation. They did not care about the passage of time at all. Their feelings toward Duan Lingtian were no different from before. The thing that I didn't want to happen the most still happened in the end. When Duan Lingtian saw the shy expressions on the two young women's faces when they saw him, he knew they still treated him like before. They did not forget about him just because of the passage of time. This was what he was most unwilling to see. However, even if he was unwilling to admit it, he had to admit that when he discovered Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao still did not forget about him, he felt a little smug in his heart. After all, this also served to accentuate his extraordinary charm since it satisfied a man's vanity. Long time no see. Duan Lingtian looked at the two young women and greeted them with a smile. Unlike Duan Lingtian's calmness, the two young women were a little nervous when they saw Duan Lingtian. They were so nervous that they did not know what to say for a long time. "Father, mother, I want to talk to them in private." Duan Lingtian looked at Duan Ruffing and Li Ro in the face of the two young women's uneasiness and said through voice transmission, "Tianer, you can't bully Lan or Yao. Otherwise I won't let you off." Li Ro replied through voice transmission and did not forget to warn him. "Talk to them properly." Compared to Li Ro's reply through voice transmission, Duan Ruffing's reply was much simpler. After a short while, Duan Ruffing and Li Ro found an excuse to leave. At this moment only Duan Lingtian, Xiaolan, and Bai Yao were left in the room. After Duan Ruffing and Li Ro left, not only did Xiaolan and Bai Yao not feel relieved, but they also became even more nervous. They were still at a loss for words. "I understand what you're thinking." Duan Lingtian had no choice but to speak when he saw the two young women remain silent. He did not beat around the bush as soon as he spoke. The two young women became even more nervous. "I'm sure both of you know it's impossible for me to accept both of you at once. Moreover, I'll be in the upper province for some time. I'm sure both of you have heard about my fiancé Kerr being taken away by the people from the upper province's Zoroastrianism." Duan Lingtian said bluntly, "Before I rescue Kerr, I won't accept any other woman. That would be disrespectful to her and to both of you. If I'm really such a man, I'm sure both of you would despise me as well." Xiaolan and Bai Yao nodded when they heard Duan Lingtian's words. They were not surprised by Duan Lingtian's words. Moreover, they knew Duan Lingtian very well. They knew Duan Lingtian would not be in a relationship with them before he rescued Kerr. It was just as Duan Lingtian had said. If Duan Lingtian was still in a relationship with them at this time, they would only look down on Duan Lingtian and think he was an irresponsible man. "Apart from that, I have a close female friend," Duan Lingtian spoke again when he thought of Tianwu. "Is it Tianwu?" Xiaolan asked. "You know Tianwu?" Duan Ling Tian was stunned. We've heard Sister Fei mention Tianwu before. We know Tianwu even sacrificed her life for you, Bai Yao said. Whether it was Bai Yao or Xiaolan, both of them were very envious of Feng Qianwu when they learned about Feng Qianwu from Li Fei. This was because Feng Qianwu had obtained Li Fei and Ker's approval. She had also touched Duan Lingtian's heart. In terms of sequence, Feng Qianwu met Duan Lingtian after they did. Naturally they admired Feng Qianwu. She was a woman who dared to love and hate. She was even willing to sacrifice her life for the person she loved. That was not something an ordinary person could do. That's true. Chapter 1874. Tianwu, how are you doing? When Duan Lingtian recalled the past between him and Feng Qianwu, he became even more worried about Feng Qianwu's current situation since he still did not know where Feng Qianwu was. However, Duan Lingtian quickly regained his senses when he realized Xiaolan and Bai Yao were standing before him. Not only do I have to find Ke, but I have to find Tianwu as well. Before I find them, I'm not in the mood to be in a relationship with any other woman. Even if I manage to find them, I still have to ask for their and little Feier's opinion if I can date both of you. Duan Lingtian continued to say. When Xiaolan and Bai Yao heard this, they looked at each other and saw the bitterness in each other's eyes. However, they did not say anything. This was their choice. They had no regrets. Whether it was the Duan Lingtian in the past or the current Duan Lingtian, he was the man they had set their minds on. In this lifetime they would not marry anyone else. Otherwise they would rather be alone for the rest of their lives. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Duan Lingtian knew he had gone overboard with his words. Due to this reason he found an excuse and left when he sensed the atmosphere had changed. At the same time his heart was filled with guilt. He felt guilty toward Xiaolan and Bai Yao. He really did not want things to turn out this way. However, he really did not know what else he could do. If both of us are really fated to be together in the future, I'll definitely make it up to both of you. Duan Lingtian thought to himself after he left. In the next few days, Duan Lingtian spent all his time with his wife and children. This continued until someone came to challenge him. Young Mansion Master, I heard you defeated Diju, the five-clawed golden dragon at the early exemplary saint stage with your cultivation base at the intermediate divine saint stage. I'd like to have a spar with you. The person who came to look for Duan Lingtian was none other than Tong Zhong, the leader of the Black Armored Army Centurions. Apart from being a centurion of the Black Armored Army, Tong Zhong was also Kumi's direct disciple. First look book before Duan Lingtian defeated Diju with his cultivation base at the divine saint stage, he was widely acknowledged as the strongest person below the exemplary saint stage in the Debussy subterranean. However, as the news of Duan Lingtian defeating Diju spread, the title of the strongest person below the exemplary saint stage was transferred to Duan Lingtian. Centurion Tong, you want to spar with me? Looking at Tong Zhong, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned. In his impression, although Tong Zhong was powerful, he was only at the peak of the divine saint stage. Perhaps he was stronger than all the martial and Dao cultivators at the peak of the divine saint stage in the Debussy subterranean. However, if he were to fight someone at the exemplary saint stage or above, he would not stand a chance at winning at all. Because of this, Duan Lingtian didn't think that Tong Zhong was a match for him. I know I'm not a match for you, young Mansion Master. However, I've heard from my master about how you defeated Diju in the Dragon's Denver. I'm really looking forward to sparring with you. Currently, I'm only lacking an opportunity to break through to the exemplary saint stage. Perhaps you'll be able to give me this opportunity, young Mansion Master. When Tong Zhong reached the end of his sentence, he revealed the purpose of his challenge to Duan Lingtian. He wanted to borrow Duan Lingtian's strength to break through to the exemplary saint stage in one fell swoop. Although he had yet to make any progress, he still wanted to give it a try so he wouldn't miss the opportunity. Since you're interested, Centurion Tong, I'll naturally accompany you to the end. When Duan Lingtian heard this, he immediately agreed to it. Tong Zhong was not an outsider after all. He would help him if he could. He was not so stingy as to reject such a small request. Thank you, young Mansion Master. Tong Zhong was delighted when he heard Duan Lingtian's agreement. Pick a place. Duan Lingtian said to Tong Zhong. Tong Zhong nodded and agreed to fight with Duan Lingtian at the Crouching Dragon Lake that was 10 miles north of the main mansion. Although Duan Lingtian and Tong Zhong's fight was not publicized, the black armored guards who were guarding the Crouching Dragon Lake spread the news. Before both of them could fight, a large group of people had already gathered around them. Most of the onlookers were from the Black Armored Army. He's the young mansion master of our Azure Cloud Mansion? Many pairs of eyes shifted to Duan Lingtian. Among these eyes, there was shock and astonishment. However, most of them were filled with respect. Although Duan Lingtian had been in the Azure Cloud Mansion for quite some time, not many people in the Azure Cloud Mansion knew about his young mansion master to prevent the Azure Cloud Mansion from being dragged down by the Devil Seal tablet in his possession. However, when news of Duan Lingtian going to the Dragons to participate in the 5-year pact had spread, the entire Azure Cloud Mansion was shocked. At this moment they finally found out. As it turned out, the Azure Cloud Mansion had a young mansion master. Moreover, the young mansion master of their Azure Cloud Mansion had even inherited their Lord Mansion Master's powerful innate talent. His cultivation base was already at the intermediate Divine Saint stage at such a young age. Apart from that, the young mansion master of their Azure Cloud Mansion had killed Jianghu, the 5-clawed golden dragon from the dragons with his cultivation base at the intermediate Divine Saint stage. According to the news, Jianghu was an early exemplary Saint stage 5-clawed golden dragon. Defeating an early exemplary Saint stage powerhouse with a cultivation base at the intermediate Divine Saint stage. Even in their wildest dreams, they would not believe such a ridiculous thing would happen. However, since the news came from the dragons and the main character was the young mansion master of their Azure Cloud Mansion, they did not doubt it at all. Instead, they were shocked. After all, this was not something that could be done by just anyone. The young mansion master is someone who can even kill an early exemplary Saint stage 5-clawed golden dragon. Isn't Centurion Tong looking for a beating by challenging him? That's right. In the past, Centurion Tong was widely acknowledged as the strongest person below the exemplary Saint stage. However, this title has now fallen to the young mansion master. Do you think Centurion Tong is dissatisfied with this? Why would he challenge the young mansion master? Humph? So what if he challenged him? In the end, Centurion Tong will only be humiliating himself. I can't believe our Azure Cloud Mansion has such an outstanding young mansion master. With him around, our Azure Cloud Mansion will definitely be able to prosper for several hundred more years. Among the onlookers there were black armored guards, ordinary Azure Cloud Mansion's elders and disciples. Currently, all of them were discussing among themselves. All of them were confident in Duan Lingtian. As for Tong Zhong, he seemed to have lost his brilliance in their eyes. I heard the young mansion master of our Azure Cloud Mansion is that young man called Duan Lingtian who obtained the Devil Seal tablet. The Devil Seal tablet is a hot potato. Now that this matter has been exposed, I'm afraid our Azure Cloud Mansion will have a hard time in the future. That's right. Even the powerhouses from the upper province will definitely make a move to snatch the Devil Seal tablet from our Azure Cloud Mansion. For this reason, it's not a good thing for our young mansion master to obtain the Devil Seal tablet. Many people had a fearful expression on their faces. They could not wait to persuade Duan Lingtian to throw the Devil Seal tablet away. Indeed, the Devil Seal tablet was one of the 10 great Super Saint weapons on the 10 great Saint weapons ranking. It was extremely precious. However, due to this reason many people coveted it. Even the powerhouses from the upper province would be tempted by it. Many people in the Azure Cloud Mansion instantly felt a sense of danger. It was as though they were being stabbed in the back. However, the attention of the people present on the scene quickly shifted to the two people in the middle of the square. Because at this very moment, one of the two made a move. Swoosh. It was none other than Tong Zhong, the centurion of the Black Armored Army, who had made the first move. He charged toward Duan Lingtian at lightning speed. Put everything else aside, just based on the speed Tong Zhong displayed, almost nobody at the peak of the Divine Saint stage could compare to him. As expected of the person who's widely acknowledged as the strongest person below the exemplary saint stage. With such speed, I'm afraid not many people below the eminent saint stage can compare to him. Upon witnessing Tong Zhong's speed, a hint of admiration could be seen in Duan Lingtian's eyes. Then he made his move at a speed that was neither fast nor slow. Boom. Duan Lingtian clenched his right hand into a fist that contained rich sun true origin. Without any technique, he punched out at lightning speed toward Tong Zhong, who was charging toward him at lightning speed. Tong Zhong did not retreat at all. He chose to meet Duan Lingtian's fist head-on. Bang. However, even though Tong Zhong had unleashed his full strength, the moment his fist made contact with Duan Lingtian's fist, regardless of whether it was his fist or the force contained in it, it was mercilessly suppressed by Duan Lingtian. Under the suppression of the force, Tong Zhong's body trembled before he was sent flying. He threw up a mouthful of blood and looked extremely wretched. In just one exchange of blows, Tong Zhong was at a disadvantage. Tang Zhong made his move again, but he did not dare to be careless. His territory, martial tactics, and a medium-grade divine ability that he had just mastered were all cast by him. Indeed, at this moment Tang Zhong had already given it his all. However, in front of Duan Lingtian, Tang Zhong's strength was nothing. Although he had shown mercy, he still defeated Tang Zhong in 10 moves. After all, his current strength was no longer the same as before. In terms of Sun True Origin, the Sun True Origin at the Eminent Saint stage was comparable to a martial cultivator at the peak of the Divine Saint stage. Coupled with Duan Lingtian's body that was stronger than ordinary people even without transforming into a dragon warrior and some other techniques, it was impossible for Tang Zhong to be a match for him. Moreover, this was under the circumstance that he had not used his divine ability. If he had used his divine ability, he would have been able to defeat Tang Zhong in just one exchange of blows. At the same time when Duan Lingtian defeated Tang Zhong, at the border of the Debussy Subterranean to the east of the Debussy Subterranean, in a restaurant in a medium-sized city, news that the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion was the young man who had obtained the Devil Seal tablet back then spread out. The young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian? After waiting for so many years, there's finally a lead. It's not a waste for me to come all the way from the upper province to the lower province. A middle-aged man dressed in a long grayish-white robe stood up from a seat in the corner of the restaurant. The middle-aged man had a pair of cross-eyed eyes and a slightly ferocious appearance. With just a glance, one could tell he was not a kind person. In the next moment, nobody saw how he left. He disappeared into thin air from the restaurant. From the beginning until the end, nobody noticed him at all. Chapter 1875. The appearance of a young mansion master with extraordinary innate talent in the Azure Cloud Mansion was supposed to be a joyous occasion. However, when they found out this young mansion master was Duan Lingtian who had obtained the Devil Seal tablet, most of the people in the Azure Cloud Mansion were not happy at all. This was because in their opinion, the Devil Seal tablet was no different from a ticking time bomb. Who knew when it would explode? At that time they would be injured as well. However, although they were dissatisfied, they only kept it to themselves. They did not dare to express their dissatisfaction in public. This was because the young mansion master was their Lord Mansion Master's son. In the Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Ruffing, the mansion master, was a supreme existence. Nobody dared to offend him. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. Duan Lingtian soon learned about this. He was not unhappy about this at all. This was the truth. The existence of the Devil Seal tablet was indeed a ticking time bomb to the Azure Cloud Mansion. Due to this reason, he had already discussed this with Gu Li. They would leave the Azure Cloud Mansion in 2 weeks and head to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. After leaving Gu Li's mansion, Duan Lingtian went to look for his parents. Father, mother. I plan to leave the Azure Cloud Mansion in 2 weeks and head to the upper province with senior brother Gu Li. Upon hearing this, Duan Ruffing nodded. He was already mentally prepared, so he was not surprised. On the other hand, Li Ro could not help but have a reluctant expression on her face even though she was mentally prepared as well. Have you confirmed it? Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Li Ro took a deep breath to calm herself down before she continued to say, since you've already decided, you should spend more time with Fei, and Yen in the next 2 weeks. They definitely won't be willing to let you go. However, because of Kerr, you have to leave. When Li Ro reached the end of her sentence, a hint of worry could be seen in her eyes. Kerr. That girl was not only Duan Lingtian's childhood sweetheart, but she was also Li Ro's earliest daughter-in-law. Her feelings for that daughter-in-law were no less than her feelings for her own son. Knowing that her daughter-in-law was involved in Zoroastrianism in the upper region, she was also very worried. Hearing Li Ro's words, Duan Lingtian nodded immediately. In the next 2 weeks he would not leave his wife and children. Even if he had to return to the Windfall Nation to pick up his senior brother, Bai Li Hong, and the others, he would bring his wife and children with him. In the following days they spent their time together. They had no idea how long it would take for him to return to the lower district after he left for the upper district. Go accompany Fei, and Yen, Li Ro advised. Duan Lingtian nodded again. After saying goodbye to his parents, he turned around and left. He did not see that when he turned around and left, 2 streams of tears flowed from Li Ro's eyes. Tears of reluctance to part with him. A mother would worry when her son traveled thousands of miles. In this world where the strong were respected, she could not help but worry when her son was traveling in the outside world. It was extremely dangerous. After Duan Lingtian parted ways with Duan Ruffing and Li Ro, he made his way to the courtyard where his wife and children stayed. When Duan Lingtian was halfway there, he suddenly stopped moving. A bitter smile could be seen on his face. At the same time, he greeted Xiaolan and Bai Yao, who were walking toward him. Xiaolan and Bai Yao did not expect to see Duan Lingtian here. They were originally chatting happily, but they suddenly stopped talking. Their faces were flushed red. "Both of you?" Duan Lingtian opened his mouth, wanting to greet Xiaolan and Bai Yao. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by a sinister voice. "If I'm not mistaken, you must be the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian?" Duan Lingtian had never heard of this sinister voice before, so he was certain it belonged to a stranger. Before Duan Lingtian could react, a gust of wind blew in front of him. Then a figure appeared. It was a middle-aged man dressed in a long gray robe. The middle-aged man had a pair of cross-eyed eyes and a ferocious expression. With just a glance, one could tell he was not a kind person. "Who are you?" When Duan Lingtian saw the middle-aged man who had suddenly appeared, he asked with a hint of dread on his face. "You don't need to know who I am, and you're not qualified to know. All you need to know is that I'm here for the Devil Seal Tablet," the middle-aged man said indifferently. The middle-aged man said indifferently. His tone was overbearing and condescending. When Duan Lingtian heard the middle-aged man was here for the Devil Seal Tablet, horror dawned on him. At the same time, he realized he had guessed correctly. The middle-aged man was indeed here for the Devil Seal Tablet. Moreover, the fact that the middle-aged man was able to appear here without anyone noticing meant his strength was extraordinary as well. The Devil Seal Tablet isn't something a trash from the lower province like you can lay your hands on. I'll give you the span of 3 breaths to hand it over. Otherwise you'll die. The moment the middle-aged man's words left his mouth, killing intent gleamed coldly in his eyes. "Trash?" Upon hearing the middle-aged man's words, horror dawned on Duan Lingtian. He did not expect the other party to be so rude. "I don't have the Devil Seal Tablet." Duan Lingtian took a deep breath secretly as he tried his best to suppress the anger in his heart before he said in a deep voice. At the same time, he realized the other party was not from the lower province. He could tell from the other party's words earlier. Earlier, the other party had called him a trash from the lower province. If the other party was from the lower province, he would not have added the words lower province in front of his words. The span of 3 breaths was gone in the blink of an eye. However, Duan Lingtian did not make any move. "Looks like you've taken my words for granted." The middle-aged man was enraged when he saw Duan Lingtian ignoring his words. His cross-eyed eyes flickered coldly as a terrifying murderous intent was emitted from his body. "If that's the case, I'll grant you your wish. After killing you, not only will your Devil Seal Tablet be mine, but everything in your spatial ring will be mine too." As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, he took a step forward. Bang! He did not seem to have made any movements, but a wave of vast and powerful energy tore through the sky and swept toward Duan Lingtian as soon as his foot landed. Duan Lingtian felt as though he was hit by a giant hammer when the energy hit him. "Watch out!" Before the middle-aged man's foot landed, both Xiaolan and Bai Yao instinctively flew toward Duan Lingtian and shielded Duan Lingtian. It was obvious they wanted to use their bodies as shields for Duan Lingtian. At this moment, there was no fear on their faces. Instead, a hint of relief could be seen on their faces. They could die for the person they loved. Perhaps he would never forget them for the rest of his life. Perhaps this was the best ending for them. "Move!" As soon as the middle-aged man's foot landed, horror dawned on Duan Lingtian. He immediately activated the dragon energy in his body with the Sun True Origin and transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior in just a blink of an eye. Golden Crow's wings. At the same time, a pair of golden wings appeared on Duan Lingtian's back after he transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. It was the pair of wings required to cast the divine ability Golden Crow's wings. Whoosh! In the next moment, Duan Lingtian appeared between Xiaolan and Bai Yao at a speed faster than the speed of sound. He extended both of his hands and pushed both of them away. Previously, Tianwu had almost lost her life because of him. At that time, he swore in his heart that he would never let anyone risk their life for him again. He would not allow a second woman who almost lost her life for him to appear again. Due to this reason, his mind went blank when he saw Xiaolan and Bai Yao shielding him with their bodies. He did not have time to think. He immediately used all his strength and rushed to their side at full speed to push them away. Bang! As soon as Duan Lingtian pushed Xiaolan and Bai Yao away, he did not even have time to react before he felt a terrifying force landing on his body. A loud bang rang in the air. Not only did he feel dizzy, but he also felt as though he was riding on clouds. Boom. Duan Lingtian only regained his senses when his body landed heavily on the ground and he felt excruciating pain all over his body. Although he had transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior and his body was ridiculously strong, Duan Lingtian still felt as though all the bones in his body were about to fall apart. He lay on the ground, unable to move for the time being. The force that landed on his body was too powerful. Wait a minute. He seemed to have retracted most of his force in time. Otherwise, with the terrifying aura he released at the beginning, I would have died even if I transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. But why did he show mercy at such a critical moment? Duan Lingtian struggled to stand up curiously. However, he discovered he could not stand at all. His injuries were too severe. Many of his bones and tendons were broken. It would take some time for him to recover. Are you all right? Two voices sounded at the same time. In the next moment, a fragrant breeze wafted into his nostrils. Two beautiful figures appeared next to Duan Lingtian. They were Xiaolan and Bai Yao, who were in tears from anxiety. When they saw Duan Lingtian was about to stand up, they hurriedly helped him up. They did not look down on Duan Lingtian even though he was wearing Duan Lingtian's dragon skin. Their hearts were filled with bitterness as they helped Duan Lingtian up. Although they knew Duan Lingtian had pushed them away out of kindness, they did not feel happy at all. There was only bitterness in their hearts. Even the girl named Tianwu could die for him. Could it be that the two of them did not even have the right to die for him? Duan Lingtian did not know what the two ladies were thinking. Otherwise he would have been speechless. After being helped up by the two ladies, Duan Lingtian immediately looked at the middle-aged man in the distance. He discovered the middle-aged man was looking at him with a hint of dread in his eyes. Didn't you want to kill me? Why did you show mercy? Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice after he took a deep breath to ease the injuries in his body. I just want to give you another chance. You've seen my strength earlier. If I want to, I can kill you as easily as killing a chicken or cutting grass. Quickly hand over the devil seal tablet. Don't test my patience. Chapter 1876. However, Duan Lingtian could see through the middle-aged man's facade. He wanted to read. He seems to be afraid of something. However, what do I have that he's afraid of? If there really is one, it would be my dragon skin. Could it be that he recognized the origin of my dragon warrior's dragon skin? The more Duan Lingtian thought about it, the more he felt it was possible. If the middle-aged man recognized his dragon skin, he would know he was a dragon warrior. Moreover, he was a 9-clawed dragon warrior. According to Hua Lao, a 9-clawed dragon warrior was extremely rare even in the Devata realms. Normally, a 9-clawed dragon warrior would only appear after a 9-clawed divine dragon had passed down the inheritance to him. Could it be that he thinks I have a 9-clawed divine dragon backing me? Duan Lingtian thought it was ridiculous when he thought about this. If he really had a 9-clawed divine dragon backing him, why would he need to go to the upper province to save his wife Ker? He could just ask the 9-clawed divine dragon for help, and the Zoroastrianism would definitely send Ker back. However, Duan Lingtian knew this was only his opinion. Others might not think the same way. It was obvious that this expert, who seemed to be from the upper province, was wary of him. Otherwise he wouldn't have put on such a strong front. Tian. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, an anxious voice rang in the air. It was Duan Ruffing, Kumi and Rong Yuan. In just a blink of an eye, they arrived next to Duan Lingtian, Xiaolan and Bai Yao. Tian, are you all right? When Duan Ruffing saw Duan Lingtian's pale face, he did not bother to ask why Duan Lingtian was wearing dragon skin. He was only concerned about his son's safety. Father, I'm fine. Duan Lingtian shook his head. He only suffered internal injuries. As long as he was given time, he would recover completely. Whoosh. At the same time, a gust of wind blew past Duan Ruffing. Kumi, who was originally standing next to Duan Ruffing, suddenly made his move. He seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind as he charged toward the middle-aged man in the distance. The Azure Cloud Mansion is not a place where you can act presumptuously, Kumi said sternly as he made his move. Elder Kumi, no. Horror dawned on Duan Lingtian. Horror, he did not expect Kumi would attack the middle-aged man. Kumi, the middle-aged man's strength, he was at least at the quintessential, the middle-aged man's. Not to mention Elder Ku, even his father, Duan Ru Feng, wasn't a match for the middle-aged man. Bang! Accompanied by a loud noise in the void, the withered old body strangely paused in the air for a moment, then burst open, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky like a bloody rain. Ku! Rong Yuan's expression changed greatly. He never thought that his good friend of many years would die in front of him like this. Elder Ku. Horror dawned on Duan Rufeng's face as well. Ever since he became the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Kumi and Rong Yuan had been his right-hand men. As time passed, he no longer treated them as outsiders. However, Kumi had died right in front of his eyes. He was killed by someone. Duan Rufeng's eyes turned red immediately. At this moment, a terrifying devil chi surged out of Duan Rufeng's body. Although it was not targeted at Duan Lingtian, Xiaolan, and Bai Yao, they still felt as though their breathing was restricted. It was extremely unbearable. This demonic chi was still increasing at an extremely fast speed. The aura on Duan Rufeng's body was getting more and more terrifying. Father, no. When Duan Lingtian discovered Duan Rufeng had disappeared from his side, horror dawned on his face immediately. He did not think his father would be able to avenge Elder Ku. The middle-aged man was just too powerful. As a martial cultivator at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, your strength is comparable to an early quintessential saint stage martial cultivator. Not bad. Unfortunately, let alone your strength at the early quintessential saint stage, even if you unleash your strength at the peak of the quintessential saint stage, you're still no match for me. The middle-aged man's cold voice resonated in the air. Based on his words, it was obvious his cultivation base was above the peak of the quintessential saint stage. At the same time he began to make his move. Watch. Oh. No. When Duan Lingtian saw the middle-aged man was about to make his move again, horror dawned on him immediately. No. Horror dawned on Xiaolan and Bai Yao's faces as well. Their eyes were filled with horror. As for Rong Yuan, he instantly flew out in an attempt to support Duan Rufeng. Although he knew he was no match for the middle-aged man, he did not retreat at all. If he could die for the sake of the mansion master, he would have no regrets in his life. Bang! Bang! Two loud bangs reverberated in the air. Duan Rufeng and Rong Yuan were sent flying by the middle-aged man like arrows that were shot out from a bow. Duan Rufeng only managed to stop himself after he was sent flying far away. As for Rong Yuan, he fell on the ground in a wretched state. His face was extremely pale. It was obvious he was severely injured. However, this was not strange. After all, his strength was much weaker than Duan Rufeng. However, it was obvious the middle-aged man was merciful this time. He did not kill them like he did to Kumi previously. Otherwise, regardless if it was Duan Rufeng or Rong Yuan, it would be impossible for them to survive. Whoosh. At the same time, Duan Lingtian heard the sound of wind whistling. In the next instant, a person appeared in his line of sight. It was a person who was just inches away from him. It was the middle-aged man. After pushing Xiaolan and Bai Yao away, the middle-aged man kicked Duan Lingtian with his leg. With a loud bang, the kick landed on Duan Lingtian's body and threw him to the ground again. Duan Lingtian, who was already injured, could not get up after he fell to the ground. When Xiaolan and Bai Yao saw this, they could not take it anymore. Although they knew they were no match for the middle-aged man, they still attacked him. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. The middle-aged man said nonchalantly. He did not even lift a finger, but Xiaolan and Bai Yao were sent flying. At the same time they lost their ability to fight. Bang! The middle-aged man lifted his leg and stomped on the dragon scales on Duan Lingtian's chest. He looked down at Duan Lingtian in a condescending manner and said coldly, "I've said before that my patience is limited. You're afraid." Duan Lingtian, who was being stepped on by the middle-aged man, felt humiliated. At the same time, he opened his blood-stained mouth and spoke slowly. "Afraid?" The middle-aged man's heart trembled when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. However, his mouth was tough. "I'm afraid? What a joke. What's there to be afraid of?" Nine-clawed divine dragon. Duan Lingtian said with a grin on his face as he looked straight into the middle-aged man's eyes. Nine-clawed divine dragon. Duan Lingtian's words were like a bolt from the blue when they entered the middle-aged man's ears. This was because Duan Lingtian had guessed everything correctly. It was so accurate that it made him tremble in fear. That was the truth. In the beginning, the middle-aged man wanted to kill Duan Lingtian at lightning speed and seize the Devil Seal tablet. However, when he saw Duan Lingtian transforming into a dragon warrior, he immediately recognized Duan Lingtian as a dragon warrior. Moreover, he noticed there were 9 claws on each of Duan Lingtian's dragon claws. It was obvious he was not just a 7-clawed dragon warrior or 8-clawed dragon warrior. Duan Lingtian was a 9-clawed dragon warrior. If one wanted to become a dragon warrior, one would have to receive the blessing inheritance from a 7-clawed divine dragon or above. Usually, those who received the blessing inheritance from a 7-clawed divine dragon would become a 7-clawed dragon warrior. Those who received the blessing inheritance from an 8-clawed divine dragon would become an 8-clawed dragon warrior. In the history of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the dragon warriors he had heard of were 8-clawed dragon warriors at most. However, today he saw a 9-clawed dragon warrior. Usually, a 9-clawed dragon warrior would be someone who had received the blessing inheritance from a 9-clawed divine dragon. It seemed like there had never been such a person in the history of the Dao Martial Saint Land. At the very least, in the history he knew, let alone a 9-clawed dragon warrior, there had never been a 9-clawed divine dragon. A dragon warrior would usually have a close relationship with the dragon who had given him the blessing inheritance. The middle-aged man was afraid of offending a 9-clawed divine dragon, so he did not kill Duan Lingtian. If he had not held back, Duan Lingtian would not have been able to escape death even if he had transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. You're very smart. When the middle-aged man heard Duan Lingtian mentioning the 9-clawed divine dragon, many expressions appeared on his face. In the end, he did not deny it. Instead, he praised Duan Lingtian. However, I still stand by my words. Hand over the Devil Seal tablet. I admit that I don't dare to kill you or anyone who's close to you because I'm afraid of the 9-clawed divine dragon behind you. However, it doesn't make any difference to me if I kill other people. The middle-aged man said coldly, if you don't want the Azure Cloud Mansion to be bathed in blood, it's best that you hand over the Devil Seal tablet to me. Why you dare? When Duan Lingtian heard the middle-aged man admitting that he was afraid of the 9-clawed divine dragon behind him, he thought the middle-aged man would be honest. It did not cross his mind that he would make such a threat. Bathed in blood in the Azure Cloud Mansion? Don't doubt my determination. I'm a man of my words. The middle-aged man said coldly. His cross-eyed eyes were filled with ruthlessness as though he was about to devour someone. Faced with the middle-aged man who was like a cold-blooded animal, Duan Lingtian had no choice but to compromise in the end and hand over the Devil Seal tablet even though he did not want to compromise. After obtaining the Devil Seal tablet, the middle-aged man chuckled. You're really naive. I'm afraid of the 9-clawed divine dragon behind you, so I don't dare to kill you or your family and friends. However, it doesn't mean that I don't dare to kill those who aren't related to you. I was just trying to deceive you earlier. You actually believed me? The humiliation that I've suffered because of you today is destined to be washed away with fresh blood. The moment the middle-aged man finished speaking, he left with the Devil Seal tablet. How dare you? Duan Lingtian was so furious that his eyes were about to pop out. He did not expect the middle-aged man would go back on his words after obtaining the Devil Seal tablet. At this moment, he felt as though he was about to explode from the anger in his heart. In this lifetime, if I, Duan Lingtian, don't kill you, I swear I'm not a human. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian's eyes were bloodshot, and his body emitted waves of terrifying killing intent. It had been a long time since he was this angry. Chapter 1877. In the Dao Martial Saint Land, dragon warriors had always been a special existence. Take a look. This was because every time a dragon warrior was born, there would be a divine dragon with more than 7 claws standing behind him. Every divine dragon with more than 7 claws could only nurture one dragon warrior in their lifetime. Due to this reason, there would always be a divine dragon with more than 7 claws standing behind every dragon warrior. Behind a 7-clawed dragon warrior would be a 7-clawed divine dragon. Behind an 8-clawed dragon warrior would be an 8-clawed divine dragon. Behind a 9-clawed dragon warrior would be an 8-clawed divine dragon. In the long history of the Dao Martial Saint Land, there were many 7-clawed dragon warriors and even some 8-clawed dragon warriors. Once, someone had killed a 7-clawed dragon warrior and was killed by the 7-clawed divine dragon. Once, someone had killed an 8-clawed dragon warrior's family and was killed by the 8-clawed divine dragon. There were also people who annihilated an 8-clawed dragon warrior's sect. However, the 8-clawed dragon warrior and his family were spared. In the end, the 8-clawed divine dragon did not retaliate. There were also people who only snatched the Super Saint weapon from the Dragon Warrior and did not suffer the wrath of the Divine Dragon behind the Dragon Warrior. These incidents in history were enough to prove one thing. There was a limit to how protective a seven-clawed Divine Dragon would be toward a Dragon Warrior. Due to this reason, the powerhouses from the Upper Province who came to the Azure Cloud Mansion with the intention of snatching the Devil Seal tablet stopped in time when they saw Duan Lingtian had transformed into a Dragon Warrior. They did not kill Duan Lingtian. Damn it! Why did that brat have to be a 9-clawed Dragon Warrior? Even if he's just a 7-clawed Dragon Warrior, it's fine if I kill him. I, Xiezong, am not afraid of those few 7-clawed Divine Dragons from the Upper Province. The middle-aged man, Xiezong, who had deceived Duan Lingtian of the Devil Seal tablet and was about to kill in the Azure Cloud Mansion, muttered to himself with a grave expression on his face. Based on his words, he actually dared to kill a 7-clawed Dragon Warrior and was not afraid of a 7-clawed Divine Dragon. There isn't even an 8-clawed Divine Dragon in the Dao Martial Saint Land, let alone a 9-clawed Divine Dragon. It seems like the reason Duan Lingtian is able to transform into a 9-clawed Dragon Warrior is due to the legacy left behind by a 9-clawed Divine Dragon. That 9-clawed Divine Dragon must have ascended to a Devata realm and possessed earth-shattering strength. Xiezong was not sure if the 9-clawed Divine Dragon was paying attention to Duan Lingtian, but he did not dare to take the risk. If he lost the bet, he would definitely die. After all, even a 9-clawed Divine Dragon could only grant one person the ability to transform into a dragon in its lifetime. It was impossible for the 9-clawed Divine Dragon to not value Duan Lingtian. Because of this, he did not kill Duan Lingtian, nor did he kill anyone close to Duan Lingtian. Regarding this, he was naturally very aggrieved. Suddenly, a group of black-armored guards appeared within Xiezong's line of sight, causing his eyes to abruptly light up. Who's there? When Xiezong saw the group of black-armored guards patrolling the area, the black-armored guards noticed him as well. After shouting loudly, they surrounded him. However, they soon discovered something else. As the middle-aged man raised his hand and closed his fingers, the air around them suddenly shrank, causing them to be unable to move. Bang, bang, bang. As the sound of explosions rang in the air, the group of black-armored guards exploded one after another, leaving behind a rain of blood. After killing a group of black-armored guards, Xiezong felt much better. This is just the beginning. Xiezong muttered to himself as he narrowed his eyes. A sinister smile could be seen on his face. Stop. At this moment, a shout sounded from afar. It was Duan Ruffing who had made his way over, trying to stop Xiezong. If you're not Duan Lingtian's father, you'd be dead by now. The Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion? A mere leader of a quasi-third-rate force dares to make a fuss in front of me, Xiezong. Xiezong glanced at Duan Ruffing coldly before he casually pushed his hand out. At once, the air trembled as a wave of vast and invisible energy swept out and sent Duan Ruffing flying again. In front of him, even someone as strong as Duan Ruffing could not withstand a single blow. Humph? At the same time as though he had noticed something, Xiezong's eyes turned cold as he pushed his hand out. Bang! As the loud sound reverberated in the air trembled as a wretched figure was sent flying out of thin air. It was a black-clad man. Due to the fact that his entire body was covered in black, one could not see his face at all. Barf? However, as the black-clad man was sent flying, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Wooing. Upon seeing this, horror dawned on Duan Ruffing, who was sent flying in the distance as well. The person who had launched a sneak attack on Xiezong was none other than Yu Wuing. Yu Wuing was a mysterious person in the Azure Cloud Mansion. He was even more mysterious than Duan Ruffing, the Mansion Master. Everyone in the Azure Cloud Mansion knew that Yu Wuing was like their Mansion Master's shadow. Most importantly, Yu Wuing was skilled in assassination techniques. He was like a ghost in the dark. Although he was slightly weaker than Duan Ruffing, he could kill someone that Duan Ruffing might not be able to kill. However, today even he had failed. Based on this, one could see how powerful Xiezong was. He had far surpassed Yu Wuing. With Shadowless's assassination technique, he'd be able to assassinate an ordinary early quintessential Saint Stage powerhouse when he least expects it. However, in front of this person who calls himself Xiezong, before he could even get close to him and make his move, he's already been caught by him. Even a powerhouse at the peak of the quintessential Saint Stage might not be able to do this. When Duan Ruffing looked at Xiezong again, a hint of dread could be seen in his eyes. It seems like he's someone who has surpassed the quintessential Saint Stage. Thank you, Lord Zong. Just as Xiezong's eyes were cold and he was about to make his move to kill Yu Wuing, a voice resonated from afar. An old figure appeared along with the voice. With just a glance, Xiezong could tell the person was the Watcher of the Debussy Subterranean. He was a quintessential Saint Stage martial cultivator sent by a first-rate force in the Upper Province. What's the matter? However, Xiezong had a lazy expression on his face when he saw the Watcher. In fact, he even seemed a little impatient. It was obvious he did not take the Watcher seriously. The Watcher was an old man. It was obvious he was a little restrained when he saw Xiezong. How could he not be restrained? Not only was Xiezong stronger than him, but his background was also not something he could compare to. Although the force behind him was a first-rate force in the Upper Province, he was merely an ordinary elder. Otherwise, he would not have been sent to this godforsaken lower province. However, Xiezong, who was standing in front of him, was from one of the three great sects in the Upper Province, the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Moreover, Xiezong's status in the Zhuangzi Buddhism was extraordinary. Let alone him, even the leader of the first-rate force in the Upper Province would have to treat Xiezong with respect. Lord Xiezong, the rule about powerhouses at the quintessential Saint Stage and above in the Upper Province not killing in the Lower Province was set by the three great sects, including your sect. Can you try not to kill as much as possible? Otherwise, it'll be difficult for me to explain this to the higher-ups. The Watcher smiled wryly as he spoke to Xiezong like a subordinate. Humph? Upon hearing the Watcher's words, Xiezong snorted coldly and said disdainfully, "If anyone says you're neglecting your duties because of this matter, you can ask them to come to the Zhuangzi Buddhism to denounce me." Go to the Zhuangzi Buddhism? Denounce you for your crimes? The Watcher smiled wryly. Perhaps even the leader of the first-rate force behind him would not dare to denounce Xiezong in the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Put aside the fact that Xiezong was an elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, his father was one of the four great kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism. In the Zhuangzi Buddhism, the four great kings could even kill the sect leader if they joined forces. Based on this, one could see how high their status was and how powerful they were. Xiezong glanced at the Watcher in disdain before he shifted his gaze back to Yu Wuing. He smirked. You should have nothing to do with Duan Lingtian. Since that's the case, I'll send you on your way. The moment Xiezong's words left his mouth, Duan Rufing's expression changed drastically. Yu Wuing's expression that was hidden under his black robe turned solemn as well. Since when did the great elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism start to flaunt his prowess in the lower province? Just as Xiezong was about to attack Yu Wuing, a calm voice sounded as though it came from all directions. At the very least, it sounded that way to everyone other than Xiezong. However, when Xiezong heard the voice, he immediately looked to the north and asked in a low voice, "Who's that?" Duan Rufing, who was initially worried about Yu Wuing, had a glint in his eyes when he heard the voice. At the same time, he followed Xiezong's gaze. Although Yu Wuing's expression could not be seen, his body trembled slightly when he heard the voice. The Watcher also followed Xiezong's gaze and looked to the north. A figure unhurriedly stepped out from behind the clouds in the northern sky. It was an old man dressed in a light gray robe. The old man stood there with an air of immortality. The Oracle Man. Xiezong's eyes lit up when he saw the old man's face. His breathing quickened and his heartbeat quickened. The Oracle Man was the current successor of the Seven Absolute Sect's second Absolute, the Prophet Progeny. He was also a thorn in the side of the three great sects, including the Zhuangzi Buddhism that he belonged to. If I can kill the Oracle Man and bring his head back, my chances of becoming the next sect leader will increase by a lot. Xiezong's heartbeat quickened when he thought of this. The Oracle Man, I didn't expect you to be attracted by the Devil Seal tablet as well. Unfortunately, the Devil Seal tablet is already mine. As for you, since you're here, there's no need for you to leave. Stay. As soon as Xiezong finished speaking, he disappeared from his spot. At the very least, no one present, including Duan Rufing and Yu Wuing, could see Xiezong's movements clearly. Chapter 1878. If you want me to stay, we'll see if you have the ability to do so. His voice became softer and softer as he spoke. What? Book? Book. As he spoke, the Oracle Man had already turned around and left. As for Xiezong, he was eager to take the Oracle Man's life. When he saw the Oracle Man leaving, he naturally chased after him. At this moment, he had completely forgotten about Yu Wuing in the Azure Cloud Mansion. The Oracle Man and Xiezong left one after another. In just a blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. At this moment only Duan Ruffing, Yu Wuing and the Watcher were left at the scene. Mansion Master Duan, what's going on? Why did Lord Xiezong come to the Azure Cloud Mansion to kill people? The Watcher looked at Duan Ruffing with a puzzled expression on his face. The reason he could make it in time was because someone had warned him that a powerhouse from the Upper Province had violated the rules in the Azure Cloud Mansion. In the end he was still too late. Many people had already died in the hands of the powerhouse from the Upper Province. In the beginning he did not know who the powerhouse from the Upper Province was. It was only when he arrived at the Azure Cloud Mansion that he found out the powerhouse from the Upper Province was Xiezong, an elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect. If he knew it was Xiezong he would not have come at all. He's here for the Devil Seal Tablet. Duan Ruffing said in a deep voice. The Devil Seal Tablet? Upon hearing Duan Ruffing's words, the Watcher frowned. Didn't the Devil Seal Tablet disappear a few years ago? It said that a young man named Duan Lingtian obtained it. Ever since then that young man disappeared with the Devil Seal Tablet. Elder Lu, you rarely go out, so I'm afraid you don't know that Duan Lingtian who obtained the Devil Seal Tablet is my son. Today Xiezong came to the Azure Cloud Mansion and killed Elder Ku before he snatched the Devil Seal Tablet from my son. When Duan Ruffing reached the end of his sentence, his eyes gleamed coldly with killing intent. That Duan Lingtian is Mansion Master Duan's son? The watchman was surprised. Elder Lu, based on what Xiezong said to you, he's from one of the three great sects in the Upper Province, the Zhuangzi Buddhism? I see that you seem to be a little afraid of him. Duan Ruffing asked. What Xiezong said to Master Lu just now made him realize that Xiezong was a member of Zhuangzi Buddhism. The Zhuangzi Buddhism was one of the three great sects in the Upper Province of the Tao Martial Saint Land. The three main sects in the Upper Province were Zoroastrianism, Heaven Divination Sect, and Zhuangzi Buddhism. He was aware of this. Lord Xiezong is an elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism. He's a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. Apart from that, his father is one of the four kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. People call him the Golden Lion King. When the watchman reached the end of his sentence, his expression turned solemn. In terms of status, any one of the four kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism is in no way inferior to the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism. If the four kings come to an agreement, they can even remove the current sect leader and appoint a new one. Duan Ruffing's expression was grave. He did not expect Xiezong to have such a powerful background. Not only was he an elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, but he was also the son of one of the four kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King. He was not surprised when the watchman said Xiezong was a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. He could tell that even a powerhouse at the peak of the quintessential saint stage could not compare to Xiezong's strength. There was only one possibility. Xiezong's cultivation base had already surpassed the quintessential saint stage. In the Tao Martial Saint Land, there was another stage after the quintessential saint stage. That stage was the Saint Celestial stage. The Saint Celestial stage was divided into 9 stages known as the 9 forms of the Saint Celestial stage. Once one cultivated to the last form, the Celestial Ascension form, one would be able to trigger the Celestial Ascension Tribulation from heaven and earth. Once one passed the Celestial Ascension Tribulation, one would be able to ascend to the heavens and become a true Celestial. Father. Duan Lingtian, who had slightly recovered from his injuries, flew over with the help of Xiaolan and Bai Yao. Currently he had already put away his dragon skin and no longer looked like a dragon warrior. Father, how many people from the Azure Cloud Mansion did that guy kill? After arriving next to Duan Ruffing, Duan Lingtian asked with a grave expression on his face. His eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. 10 people died. Duan Ruffing sighed. 10 people? Duan Lingtian was stunned. He found it hard to believe. Only 10 people? Father, did something happen? Duan Lingtian asked again. He did not believe the middle-aged man was a kind person. If the middle-aged man did not see him transforming into a 9-clawed dragon warrior and was afraid of the 9-clawed divine dragon, he would have killed him and annihilated the entire Azure Cloud Mansion. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian figured something must have happened that caused the middle-aged man to stop killing the Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples. Earlier, another powerhouse from the Upper Province came. When he saw him, he mocked him. After that, that powerhouse from the Upper Province turned around and left. He also chased after that powerhouse from the Upper Province. Although Duan Lingtian recognized the Oracle Man, he did not say anything and pretended not to know him. Before he obtained permission from the Oracle Man, he would not reveal that he knew the Oracle Man. Another powerhouse from the Upper Province came? When Duan Lingtian heard this, he was naturally shocked. He immediately looked around. After a few glances, he discovered that apart from his father, there was only one old man left. Yu Wuing had already left without him noticing. However, when Duan Lingtian heard that the middle-aged man who snatched the Devil Seal tablet from him had left, he sighed in relief. Put everything else aside, the fact that the middle-aged man had left meant that the other people in the Azure Cloud Mansion had escaped death. As for seeking revenge, he did not have the strength to do so at this moment. At this moment, even if he was filled with anger, he could only bury it in the depths of his heart. This was because he knew he did not have the strength to deal with that person, let alone kill him. Mansion Master Duan, is this your son? At some point, the Watcher's gaze landed on Duan Lingtian as he asked Duan Ruffing. Duan Ruffing nodded. Then he turned to Duan Lingtian and said, Tian this is our Debussy Subterranean's Watcher, Elder Lu. Watcher. Upon hearing Duan Ruffing's words, Duan Lingtian was naturally shocked. He did not expect the Debussy Subterranean's Watcher would appear here. Elder Lu. Out of courtesy, Duan Lingtian still greeted the Watcher. Little fellow, you're quite lucky to be able to obtain a Super Saint weapon like the Devil Seal Tablet. However, the Devil Seal Tablet is a Super Saint weapon on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking after all. It might not be a good thing for you to obtain it. Now that the Devil Seal Tablet is no longer in your hands, there's no need for you to hide like before. It's a win-win situation. The Watcher's words were still fine in the beginning. However, as he spoke, a complicated expression appeared on Duan Lingtian's face. Indeed, it might not be a bad thing for him that the Devil Seal Tablet was no longer in his hands. Naturally, Duan Lingtian's thoughts did not mean he no longer hated the middle-aged man from before. Not only did the middle-aged man humiliated him, but he had even killed 10 disciples from the Azure Cloud Mansion and Elder Ku. He would definitely avenge himself sooner or later. As for now, he knew his limits. Mansion Master Duan, since there's nothing else here, I'll take my leave as well. After the Watcher bade farewell to Duan Ruffing, he left. At this moment, only Duan Ruffing, Duan Lingtian, Xiaolan, and Bai Yao were left on the scene. As for Rong Yuan, he was busy comforting the Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples who were affected by the commotion. That person's name is Xie Zong. He's an elder from the Zhuangzi Buddhism, one of the 3 great sects in the Upper Province. His cultivation base has already surpassed the quintessential saint stage. He's a powerhouse who has entered the saint celestial stage. Duan Ruffing was the first to break the silence. When he mentioned Xie Zong again, killing intent rose in Duan Ruffing's eyes as though he was about to devour someone. The anger in his heart was no less than Duan Lingtian. Someone from one of the 3 great sects? Duan Lingtian's eyes widened. He did not expect that before he could rescue his wife, Ker, from the evil clutches of Zoroastrianism, he would be involved with another sect, the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Naturally, it was not a good relationship. As for the Saint Celestial stage, Duan Lingtian was no stranger to it. Previously, when he was still in the Mystical Sky Mansion, a quasi-third-rate force, he had gone to the library in the main mansion of the Mystical Sky Mansion and read many books. Among them, there were books that introduced the cultivation base in the Tao Martial Saint Land. Among them was the Saint Celestial stage. The Saint Celestial stage was the cultivation base after the quintessential saint stage in the Tao Martial Saint Land. It was also the last cultivation base in the Tao Martial Saint Land. As long as one cultivated to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the Celestial Ascension form, one would be able to undergo the Celestial Ascension Tribulation. Once one passed the Heavenly Tribulation, one would be able to ascend to the heavens. His master, whom he had never met, the Sword Saint, Feng Qingyang, had once cultivated to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage and passed the Heavenly Tribulation before ascending to the Devata realm. Saint Celestial stage. I wonder which form of the Saint Celestial stage Xie Zong has cultivated to? Duan Lingtian thought to himself. At the same time, he felt a certain amount of pressure. As it turned out, Xie Zong, who killed Elder Ku and more than 10 Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples, was actually a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. He was someone he had to look up to now. However, Duan Lingtian was not discouraged by this. So what if Xie Zong was at the Saint Celestial stage? One day he would kill his way to the Zhuangzi Buddhism and avenge Elder Ku and the 10 Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples. It was all because of the Devil Seal Tablet that Xie Zong had appeared in the Azure Cloud Mansion. Moreover, the Devil Seal Tablet belonged to him. For this reason, whether it was Elder Ku's death or the other Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples' deaths, Duan Lingtian would take all the blame on himself. Perhaps, Duan Lingtian would only be able to let go of the burden on his shoulders when he killed Xiezong and avenged himself. Since the Azure Cloud Mansion had caused such a huge commotion, it was, naturally, impossible for the news to be kept a secret. In fact, the Azure Cloud Mansion did not intentionally conceal the news. Instead, they openly spread the news. Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, is the lucky person who obtained the Devil Seal Tablet. After his identity was exposed, he was coveted by a powerhouse from the Upper Province. The Devil Seal Tablet was also taken away by the powerhouse from the Upper Province. The powerhouse from the Upper Province who took the Devil Seal Tablet away is an elder from the Zhuangzi Buddhism, one of the three great sects in the Upper Province. Chapter 1879. The people in the Wuxia subterranean did not expect this at all. 1. Reading. Not long after they found out that Duan Lingtian who possessed the Devil Seal Tablet was the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, the Devil Seal Tablet in Duan Lingtian's hands was snatched away by a powerhouse from the Upper Province. If the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion didn't expose his identity, he wouldn't have been targeted by the powerhouses from the Upper Province. The Devil Seal Tablet in his hands wouldn't have been snatched away by them as well. Many people sighed emotionally. If he wants to fulfill the 5-year pact with the dragons, he's bound to expose his identity. However, compared to the Devil Seal Tablet, obtaining the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool in the Saint Land of the Dragons doesn't seem to be worth the loss. That's right. If it were me, I'd rather not participate in the 5-year pact than lose the Devil Seal Tablet. Perhaps the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion is regretting it now. More than half of the Wuxia subterranean became lively. The topic of discussion was all about Duan Lingtian. When the news spread out, even the Mountain Shade Black Market and the dragons received the news. It's been snatched away so quickly? When leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market heard the news, he was surprised as well. However, he was not surprised that the Devil Seal Tablet in Duan Lingtian's hands was snatched away. Instead, he was surprised that it was snatched away in such a short time. Previously, when Duan Lingtian fulfilled the 5-year pact with the dragons and exposed his identity, he knew Duan Lingtian would not be able to keep the Devil Seal Tablet in his hands. It was precisely because of this that even he didn't covet the Devil Seal Tablet at that time. He knew very well that even he would not be able to keep the Devil Seal Tablet. In front of some powerhouses from the Upper Province, he, the leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market who was widely acknowledged as one of the 2 strongest powerhouses in the Dao Martial Saint Land, was not worth mentioning at all. Serves him right. Other than clan leader Di Shan who did not say anything, all the other 5-clawed divine dragons including Shui Chan the enforcement elder, were gloating over Di Shan's misfortune. They did not have a good impression of the young man who had killed the future patriarch of the Dragon Clan and snatched the opportunity to enter the Dragon Clan's Saint Land, the Dragon Cleansing Pool. They could not wait for the young man to be killed after the Devil Seal Tablet was snatched away. You want to see it? Books. It seems that Duan Lingtian has encountered a good-tempered expert from the Upper Province. That's right. Otherwise he wouldn't have survived. Perhaps he'll obediently kneel and beg for mercy when he sees the powerhouses from the Upper Province and offer the Devil Seal Tablet with both hands? The group of 5-clawed divine dragon elders discussed animatedly, their words filled with mockery. The news spread far and wide, and it did not take long for it to spread to almost the entire Wuxia subterranean. In the faraway 6th-rate Saint Nation, Windfall Nation. It had been quite some time since the news of Duan Lingtian, who had obtained the Devil Seal Tablet, being the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion spread. However, the Situ clan's mansion was still crowded. Even the people from the Windfall Nation's imperial family came to visit. Naturally, the people they visited were not the clan leader of Situ clan or any of the high-ranking officials in Situ clan. The people they visited were Duan Lingtian's family and friends. For example, Bai Li Hong, Feng Wudao and the others. After a whole day of socializing, Bai Li Hong, Feng Wudao, and the others finally had some free time in the evening. However, all of them were exhausted. They had been going through such socializing for a few days now. Duan Lingtian is really something. He always gives us different surprises. This time, not only has his cultivation base entered the Divine Saint stage, but the news of him killing Diju who was at the early exemplary saint stage has also spread out. Even the news of him becoming the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion has spread out. Nangongyi stretched his arms and legs. After a long while he could not help but ridicule. Duan Lingtian's cultivation base has entered the Divine Saint stage, and he has even become the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. We should be happy for him, Nangong Chen said as he glanced at Nangong Yi indifferently. The current Nangong Chen was different from his cold and distant self in the past. He had changed a lot. At the very least, he would not have said such a thing in the past. Nangong Chen is right. We should be happy for Duan Lingtian. Nangong Yi, if you're tired, you don't have to deal with those guests from tomorrow onward. Qin Shaoshui said to Nangong Yi. I'm just saying, Nangong Yi glared at Qin Shaoshui before sighing. Until now, I'm still in a daze. Duan Lingtian's cultivation base is still alright since he's already a freak. Although I'm surprised that he has entered the Divine Saint stage, I don't find it strange at all. However, the problem is, how did his identity change so suddenly? The young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion? What kind of force is the Azure Cloud Mansion? It's one of the two strongest forces in the Debussy subterranean, and he's actually the young mansion master. When Nangong Yi reached the end of his sentence, his voice began to tremble slightly. Until now he still felt as though he was dreaming. In his opinion, the matter regarding Duan Lingtian was just too ridiculous. It was so ridiculous that he found it hard to believe. I've never heard him mention that his father is the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion before this. Qin Shaoshui smiled wryly. Perhaps he didn't even know his father is the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion before this. Haven't you heard him mention it before? One of the reasons he came to the Dao Martial Saint Land is to look for his parents. Nangong Yi continued to say, I'm really curious what kind of expression he'll have when he finds out his father is the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. The Azure Cloud Mansion is not an ordinary force. As one of the two strongest forces in the Debussy subterranean, it's one of the most outstanding quasi-third-rate forces. Since Little Tian has killed Diju, it can be considered as avenging the people who died in Ling Tian sect. They can rest in peace now. Feng Wudao sighed. The moment Feng Wudao's words left his mouth, the entire place fell silent again. Diju, whom Duan Lingtian had killed to fulfill the 5-year pact, was none other than Diju, the 5-clawed golden dragon, who had annihilated Ling Tian sect on Half Moon Island. At that time, even they had almost died in Diju's hands. Perhaps, Diju would never have imagined that after 5 years, the young man whom he regarded as an ant would already possess the strength to kill him. Xiong Quan's eyes gleamed as he said. The moment his words left his mouth, an expression of admiration appeared on his face. He admired his young master, Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's innate talent isn't something that can be predicted with common sense. However, it's true that he did a great job killing Diju. Nangong Yi smiled. What? Aren't you tired of the social activities Duan Lingtian has brought you? Qin Shaoshui asked with a teasing smile. Nangong Yi rolled his eyes at him. Will junior brother be in danger? Unlike Qin Shaoshui and the others, Bai Lihong had thought about many things. After all, when he fulfilled the 5-year pact, he revealed his identity as well. Right now, I'm afraid most of the people in the Debussy subterranean already know that he's the one who obtained the Devil Seal tablet back then. The Devil Seal tablet is a famous Super Saint weapon on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking. Even powerhouses from the upper province would be tempted by it. If a powerhouse from the upper province is really tempted by it, I'm afraid even the Azure Cloud Mansion won't be able to keep the Devil Seal tablet in his hands. The moment Bai Lihong thought of this, his expression turned grave immediately. When Feng Wudao and the others saw Bai Lihong's expression, they found it strange as well. However, when Bai Lihong revealed his thoughts, they gasped one after another. I didn't think about this before. Now that I hear Elder Bai Li's words, it seems like Duan Lingtian is really in danger. If a powerhouse from the upper province comes, it'll be fine if he can be saved by handing over the Devil Seal tablet. However, I'm worried that with Duan Lingtian's character, he won't be too cooperative. I'm afraid he'll anger the powerhouse from the upper province and be killed by them. With Duan Lingtian's intelligence, I'm sure he'll be able to think of this as well. I can only hope that he'll be able to escape in time before the powerhouse from the upper province comes. For a time, everyone including Bai Lihong began to worry about Duan Lingtian. When they thought about Duan Lingtian's situation, they began to feel anxious. In the next 2 days they continued to entertain the guests from the outside world. On the 3rd day, another piece of news came that caused their expressions to change drastically. A powerhouse from the upper province came to the Azure Cloud Mansion and forcefully snatched the Devil Seal tablet from Duan Lingtian? Is Duan Lingtian alright? When Bai Lihong and the others heard this news, their expressions changed drastically. The thing they were most worried about had happened. He's all right? It's good that he's all right. It's good that he's all right. When they heard that Duan Lingtian was only robbed of the Devil Seal tablet and that he was all right, they could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Compared to the Devil Seal tablet, they were more worried about Duan Lingtian's safety. What are all of you talking about? Just as Bai Li Hong and the others were heaving a sigh of relief, a voice resonated in the air. It seemed to come from all directions, causing them to lose their sense of direction. However, just by listening to the voice they found it familiar. Before they could even react, 3 people suddenly appeared in their field of vision. 2 people stood side by side with a little boy next to them. The 2 people standing side by side were very familiar to them. Junior brother? Little Tian. Duan Ling Tian. Young master. Master. When Bai Li Hong and the others saw the face of the young man standing side by side, their eyes lit up immediately. All of them had a pleasantly surprised expression on their faces. It did not cross their minds that while they were still worried about the person in front of them, he would appear in front of them in just a short while. They could not help but heave a sigh of relief again. Hearing that Duan Lingtian was alright and seeing that Duan Lingtian was alright were 2 completely different concepts. Is everyone alright? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. At the same time, Li Fei, who was standing side by side with Duan Lingtian while holding the hand of a little boy who was about 6 or 7 years old, nodded at Bai Li Hong and the others as a form of greeting. Apart from Bai Li Hong, he knew everyone in the group. Duan Lingtian, how did you find Miss Fei? That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.